Chapter 2152 Essence Spirit Mind Refinement 2152 Essence Spirit Mind Refinement. Although the dozens of Earth Immortals had different cultivation realms, they released greater divine powers the moment they attacked. Dharmic treasures tore through the air one after another, turning into dense spots of light that descended like a downpour. The martial Dao Prime body stood in midair with a deep gaze. He did not move at all, and a series of explosions sounded from his body, as though he had broken free from some chain. With every boom, the aura of the martial Dao Prime body would increase. A purple halo would appear behind him. Pang! 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 In the blink of an eye, 6 purple halos appeared behind the martial Dao Prime body. 6 fate rings appeared and shone with a mysterious glow. Every single fate ring contained the Dao and Dharmic arts of the martial Dao Prime body and was extremely shocking. Under the illumination of the 6 fate rings, the martial Dao Prime body was like a god. His body shone with a divine light and was filled with purple qi. His might was torrential and could not be blasphemed. Qingyun and the others were shocked when they saw that. They had never seen the purple halos behind the martial Dao Prime body before. This method and secret skill had already surpassed their imagination. Boom! 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 Instantly, many divine powers and dharmic treasures descended and struck the martial Dao Prime body like raging tides. The martial Dao Prime body did not dodge or avoid, nor did he move. The 6 fate rings behind him trembled slightly and released purple halos, neutralizing all the attacks. The dozens of Earth Immortals were alarmed. Qingyun's expression was terrible as well. Even if he was in the same position, he might not be able to escape unscathed from such a ferocious attack. However, the mysterious purple-robed man before him blocked everyone's attacks without moving at all. The difference was too great. The eyes of the martial Dao Prime body closed slightly as he sensed the power of the Earth Immortal realm. With just this head-on clash, he had already roughly determined that the peak level 6 Fate Ring realm could take on a grade 5 Earth Immortal head-on in terms of strength. The peak of the level 7 Fate Ring realm would be able to suppress all Earth Immortal experts in terms of strength. After the martial Dao Prime body did his calculations, he no longer wanted to get entangled with these Earth Immortals. Take my punch as well! The martial Dao Prime body opened his eyes and said indifferently. He strode forward and punched forward from more than 100 feet away. That single punch caused the world to change. Even Qingyun, who was the furthest away and had the highest cultivation realm, felt an unimaginable terrifying aura sweep over after that punch, as though it wanted to drown him. That punch was way too terrifying. Without witnessing that punch personally, one would never be able to understand that feeling. It was as though no living being, divine power, secret skill or divine weapon in this world could defend against that punch. A tragic aura surged over and the dozens of Earth Immortals turned pale. They felt suffocated and their bodies felt like they were about to explode. Escape! I can't defend against it! Many thoughts flashed through the minds of the dozens of Earth Immortals. They did not even have the courage to resist. Boom! Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled. Instantly. The void before everyone seemed to be unable to withstand the power of that punch, and caved in rapidly. The dozens of Earth Immortals who attacked earlier on suddenly felt a tremendous suction force. They could not control their bodies at all and flew towards the sunken void. Everyone wanted to dodge but could not. Even Qingyun, a grade 9 Earth Immortal, approached the fist of the martial Dao Prime body with a horrified expression. It was as though everyone was charging towards his fist with all their might. Dozens of Earth Immortals fell into the sunken void. Immediately after, the punch of the martial Dao Prime body descended. It was an apocalyptic power. Poof! There was a blood mist. Dozens of Earth Immortals died with their essence spirits destroyed without exception. I'll give it my all! Qingyun roared and slapped his storage bag, summoning all his divine weapons and dharmic treasures to throw towards the fist of the martial Dao Prime body. Crack! 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 All the divine weapons and dharmic treasures shattered into dust. Qingyun's eyes widened and he stood motionlessly in midair. His expression was dark and the light in his eyes gradually dimmed. The martial Tao Prime body had an indifferent expression as he retracted his palm and walked towards the Essence Spirit Mine. After he brushed past Kong Yi, the latter's body exploded without a corpse left. The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao Prime body moved and collected the storage bags of Kong Yi and the others, putting away the Essence Spirit Stones, major essence condensation pills and other cultivation resources. As for those divine weapons and dermic treasures, he was not interested at all. Even the dermic treasures of heaven immortals might not be able to hurt his body, let alone the dermic treasures of earth immortals. The martial Tao cultivated the body. Be it the 9 transformations of the martial Tao or the Fate Ring secret ground, they were both constantly tapping into the potential of his body. The martial Tao Prime body used his body as a furnace to nurture all sutras, smelt divine powers and open up a secret ground. Even the green lotus true body could not compare to his body. There were also some divine powers and cultivation techniques in those storage bags. The martial Tao Prime body flipped through them casually and threw them away when he realized that they were not worth cultivating. He had smelted too many divine powers and read many ancient books in the Kunlun ruins of Tianhuang mainland. Later on, he roamed through a billion minor chiliocosms and read countless divine techniques in them. Although he had just ascended, his horizons were terrifying and far surpassed the earth immortals and heaven immortals of the upper world. The cultivation techniques of the lower worlds were mostly simple compared to the upper world. However, many divine powers were passed down into the lower worlds by chance. In Tianhuang mainland, there were the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. Right now, the most important thing for the martial Tao Prime body was cultivation resources. There were hundreds of thousands of essence spirit stones in the storage bags, far from enough for him to cultivate. The martial Tao Prime body entered the essence spirit mine directly. There were many ascenders underground who were still mining. Even if they heard the commotion above, they did not dare to go out and check. The martial Tao Prime body killed the guard beneath casually and said in a deep voice, "The owner of this essence spirit mine has changed. Everyone in the mine can leave now." Although the voice of the martial Tao Prime body was not loud, it spread to every corner of the essence spirit mine. Initially, many cultivators could not believe it. However, as time passed by, more and more cultivators walked out of the essence spirit mine and escaped from this place. In less than half a day, the essence spirit mine became empty and the ascenders left cleanly, leaving only the martial Tao Prime body. The martial Tao Prime body looked at the surrounding mineral veins and assumed a lotus position, channeling his blood chi. The figure of the martial Tao Prime body became faintly visible and a gigantic furnace appeared on the spot. 4 balls of flames burned around it, as though they had formed 4 fire dragons that coiled around the furnace. In the blink of an eye, the furnace turned red and burned furiously. Under normal circumstances, there were many gravel impurities in the essence spirit mine that had to be excavated bit by bit. However, that was nothing to the martial Tao Prime body. The martial Tao furnace was incomparably domineering and had a terrifying intent that could even refine a world. Right now, the reason why the martial Tao Prime body activated the martial Tao furnace was because he wanted to smelt the entire essence spirit mine. All the impurities would naturally be refined by the furnace. As for the heaven and earth essence chi in the essence spirit stone, it would be absorbed by the martial Tao furnace. Chapter 2153 Battling Yellow Sand Palace. 2153 Battling Yellow Sand Palace. Yellow Sand Palace, a black-grade faction. In the Fiend domain, there were countless sects and factions like that. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace was not human. This was originally a desert where an expert of the Fiend domain died. The blood of this expert from the Fiend domain tainted the desert. Although he died, his blood still possessed a tremendous power. Under the nourishment of the expert's blood, a ball of yellow sand spirit was born in the desert. The yellow sand spirit made use of the blood of this expert from the Fiend domain, and the inheritance left behind to cultivate carefully bit by bit. Before long, it entered the Tao and eventually gained accomplishments. It condensed the human body and established Yellow Sand Palace. Yellow Sand Palace had been established for more than 100,000 years. In the Fiend domain, there were not many black-grade sects that were more than 100,000 years old. Many black-grade sects and factions would be annexed by other sects and factions before long. Yellow Sand Palace was located at the borders of the Fiend domain, and very few experts noticed it. That was the reason why it existed for so long. Up till this point of his cultivation, as the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace, the Yellow Sand Spirit Ball had already cultivated to the level 5 Heaven Essence realm. There was no living being in the area he ruled that could challenge his authority. Essence Spirit Mines were rare at such borders as well. There were only 3 Essence Spirit Mines in the territory under his jurisdiction. This day, the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace was in seclusion and suddenly felt uneasy, as though something had happened. Why are there so few Essence Spirit Stones during this period of time? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace appeared as a middle-aged man. He wore a yellow robe and his face was gaunt and yellow. His skin was rough, and his eyes were extremely sharp. He asked with a frown as he walked out. Behind him were more than 10 followers who were all Earth Immortals. When his followers heard his question, they had strange expressions that were filled with shock and fear. Some of the followers wanted to speak but stopped. Why? Someone tampered with things in secret, and even dared to steal Essence Spirit Stones meant for my cultivation? The expression of the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace darkened as he asked coldly. A follower said hurriedly, Palace Lord, you're truly sharp. Indeed, there are less Essence Spirit Stones. However, it's not because anyone dares to steal your Essence Spirit Stones. It's just that there's a problem with an Essence Spirit Mine. What can happen to an Essence Spirit Mine? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace pondered for a moment before his expression changed as he probed. Could an ancient living being have been dug out from the mine? It would be fine if it was a dead living being. If a living being that was alive was dug out, even he would have to choose to escape. Not really, a lackey said. That Essence Spirit Mine was occupied by a mysterious purple-robed man. No one knows his cultivation realm or is his match. An external cultivator? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace asked with a frown. The follower shook his head. No, I heard that he's an ascender who killed Qingyun and the others. After occupying the Essence Spirit Mine, he even released all the ascenders in the mine. Ascender? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace felt slightly relieved. How strong could an ascender of the lower worlds be? However, why did this purple-robed man release all the other ascenders in the mine? When did this happen? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace asked. Almost 10 years, a follower said. Palace Lord, you were in seclusion, so we did not dare to disturb you. A few protectors led cultivators there to retrieve the Essence Spirit Mine. However, the follower paused for a moment and stole a glance at the expression of the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace before saying, all of them died in the end. Humph. The expression of the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace darkened as he said slowly, Ascender? Let's see where this Ascender came from. How dare he act so arrogantly in my territory? Pass down the order. Get Protector Shui and Protector Gu to gather all the cultivators above the Earth Immortal Realm in the palace. Regardless of whether they're in seclusion, gather and prepare to set off. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace waved his hand with a murderous aura. However, the dozens of followers stood on the spot motionlessly. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace swept his gaze. A follower said timidly, Palace Lord, Protector Shui and Protector Gu are both dead. Inform the remaining protectors then. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace said sternly. There are 7 protectors in Yellow Sand Palace. Are they all dead? 5 of them died and the remaining 2 were scared off. The follower said with difficulty. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace had a livid expression as he took a deep breath and declared, Cultivators of Yellow Sand Palace, listen up. Everyone, gather in front of the hall and follow me. Beneath the Essence Spirit Mine. In more than 10 years, this Essence Spirit Mine was mostly smelted by the Martial Dao Prime Body. His methods were extremely domineering and were equivalent to forcefully absorbing the essence chi of an essence spirit mind to refine his foundation. Upon his departure, this essence spirit mind would essentially be useless. Even if someone continued digging, they would not be able to dig out many essence spirit stones. The speed of smelting an essence spirit mine in more than 10 years was rather terrifying. Even in the upper world, there was no cultivation technique that could reach such a cultivation speed and possess such a domineering absorption effect. Part of the reason why was because this essence spirit mine was not large. At the same time, the martial Tao prime body had cultivated 4 Tao fires. With the augmentation of the 4 Tao fires, the refinement speed of the martial Tao furnace was extremely shocking. Of course, the heaven and earth essence she required for the martial Tao prime body to break through was extremely shocking as well. This small essence spirit mine alone was not enough. Suddenly, sensing something, the martial Tao prime body opened his eyes. It was as though 2 purple flames were burning in the depths of the dark essence spirit mine. It's finally here. The martial Tao prime body murmured softly and stood up slowly. Boom! There was a loud bang. The figure of the martial Tao prime body broke out of the ground. Due to more than 10 years of smelting, the essence spirit mine beneath his feet was empty and countless gravel shattered, collapsing with dust billowing. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace had just arrived with many cultivators when he saw that. He was enraged. How dare you act so brazenly in the territory of Yellow Sand Palace? Die! Without hesitation, the palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace pointed at the martial Tao prime body, ordering coldly, "Kill him." This time round, Yellow Sand Palace sent more than 1,000 Earth Immortal experts with a massive might. There were even more than 10 Heaven Immortals. The palace lord of Yellow Sand Palace did not believe that so many people could not suppress an ascender. The Heaven Immortals attacked at the same time. One after another, supreme divine powers tore through the air. 1,000 Earth Immortals attacked and greater divine powers, dermic treasures and secret skills blanketed the skies densely. The martial Tao prime body stood in midair with a cold silver mask on his face, as though he could be drowned at any moment against such an attack. However, purple halos condensed behind him one after another. 1, 2, 7, 8. 8 fate rings were released. All the divine powers, secret skills and divine weapons descended and were repelled by the 8 fate rings behind the martial Tao prime body. The 8 fate rings condensed the power of the martial Tao and contained the will of the martial Tao. They were intertwined with the dermic arts of the martial Tao and seemed eternal and unshakable. Chapter 2154 Level 9 Fate Ring Realm 2154 Level 9 Fate Ring Realm. What is that? The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace and more than 10 Heaven Immortals and 1,000 Earth Immortals were shocked with disbelief on their faces. The 8 purple halos stood behind the purple-robed man and were interweaved with countless mysterious and complicated runes, as though they could contain the secrets of the universe. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace had lived for 200,000 years, but he had never seen such methods. A supreme divine power? There were many supreme divine powers in the upper world. Although the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace did not cultivate many of them, he had heard of them. However, he had never seen such a divine power phenomenon. The dermic treasures summoned by the 1,000 Earth Immortal experts collided with the 8 purple halos and shattered, turning into scrap metal that scattered on the ground. Even cracks appeared on the dermic treasures of Heaven Immortal experts. The difference was too great. How can that be an ascender? This must be a top-tier expert from somewhere. The martial Tao prime body looked at the many Fiend domain cultivators present. There was no expression on his cold silver mask and 2 red lotus flowers were vaguely reflected in his deep eyes. The martial Tao prime body channeled his essence spirit and conjured hand seals repeatedly. Suddenly, many cultivators present turned incomparably hot as red flames burst forth from their bones, organs, flesh and blood. There was no chance to dodge the flames that were born from within. Ah! 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 A series of tragic cries sounded from the crowd. Scarlet flames burst forth from the bodies of the 1,000 Earth Immortal experts. The cultivators roared and flames spewed from their noses and mouths. In the blink of an eye, those Earth Immortal experts were engulfed by the scarlet flames and turned into gigantic human-shaped fireballs that turned into ashes before long. The ashes of those cultivators were a demonic blood-red color and fell to the ground, forming the shape of lotus flowers. The red lotus karmic fire specialized in burning karma. The heavier the negative karma on their bodies, the fiercer the karmic flames burned. Even supreme divine powers could not defend against the power of the karmic flames. How could the Earth Immortal experts present withstand it? In a few breaths, they were burned to ashes. The remaining Heaven Immortals, such as the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace, were not spared either. These Heaven Immortals merely relied on their cultivation realms and blood chi to defend for a moment. However, the pain of the karmic flames burning their bodies was unbearable. The karmic flames could not be suppressed with blood chi and divine powers alone. On the contrary, when some Heaven Immortals released their divine powers, the karmic flames intensified. The Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace was burned to his true form, and the yellow sand was scorching red. Every single gravel was crystalline like rubies. In midair, the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace merely lasted for a dozen more breaths before the gravel shattered and his life force dissipated, dying on the spot. The cultivators of Yellow Sand Palace that arrived were completely annihilated. This also meant that Yellow Sand Palace was now removed from history. The Martial Dao Prime Body waved his sleeves and collected the storage bags of many cultivators present, gathering essence spirit stones and other items. Although his gains could not compare to the essence spirit mine beneath his feet, they were still considerable. The Martial Dao Prime Body took out a map and swept his gaze across it, heading towards the other two essence spirit mines of Yellow Sand Palace. Before long, the Martial Dao Prime Body arrived at the second essence spirit mine. Almost all the experts of Yellow Sand Palace died in the previous battle. The ones guarding this essence spirit mine were only black immortal cultivators. With the death of the Palace Lord of Yellow Sand Palace, the remaining cultivators were merely a motley crowd. A casual attack from the Martial Dao Prime Body caused everyone to flee. After entering the essence spirit mine, the Martial Dao Prime Body released the ascenders beneath and cultivated in the depths of the essence spirit mine. He wanted to cultivate to the level 9 Fate Ring realm as soon as possible. According to his deduction, after entering the level 9 Fate Ring realm, he could sweep through the Heaven Essence realm and suppress all Heaven Immortal experts. Even if he encountered a perfected immortal, he might be able to escape unscathed. Right now, he would most likely be doomed if he encountered a perfected immortal. On the other hand, the Martial Dao Prime Body was in a hurry to raise his cultivation realm because the path beyond the Fate Ring realm was already gone. He had to cultivate to the peak of the Fate Ring realm as soon as possible before he could see the path ahead and continue to deduce the Martial Dao. The cultivation of the Martial Dao Prime Body was completely different from the cultivation dermic formulations of the Trichiliocosm. Nobody could guide his cultivation. He would have to rely on himself for every step from now on. 50 years. The Martial Dao Prime Body left the Essence Spirit Mine and headed for the third Essence Spirit Mine in Yellow Sand Palace. Thereafter, he continued cultivating in the depths of the third Essence Spirit Mine. Year 213. The Martial Dao Prime Body left, and the third Essence Spirit Mine was already refined into ruins with its essence chi depleted. The Martial Dao Prime Body was still at the level 8 Fate Ring realm. Although there were only 9 levels to the Fate Ring realm, there was an incredible chasm between each level, and the difference in strength between each Fate Ring was immense. The number of Essence Spirit Stones required for the Martial Dao Prime Body to break through was unimaginable. The number of Essence Spirit Stones required for thousands of Heaven Immortals to break through might not cause much of a reaction even if he refined them all. The Martial Dao Prime Body continued advancing in the Fiend domain, and compared it to the map. Before long, he chose another black-grade faction. 8 Limbs Mountain. The sect master of this black-grade faction was a 9-headed python. The Martial Dao Prime Body did the same and swept through the entire 8 Limbs Mountain, crushing the 9-headed python. He released all the Ascenders and occupied the 4 essence spirit mines of 8 Limbs Mountain to continue cultivating. Year 333. The martial Dao Prime Body refined all 4 essence spirit mines and reappeared, overwhelming another Black Grade faction, Evil Moon Temple. Year 471. Purple Star Temple was destroyed. Year 565. Malevolent Fiend Pavilion was destroyed. Year 689. Ecstasy Monastery was destroyed. Year 796. Extreme Frost Sect was destroyed. Year 815. Bloodsea Palace was destroyed. On the 991st year after the martial Dao Prime Body ascended to the Fiend domain, he broke through in the Fate Ring realm and condensed his 9th Fate Ring. At the same time, in the territory of the Fiend domain, the appearance of the martial Dao Prime Body caused a huge stir. In less than 1,000 years, Black Grade factions were wiped out one after another. The purple-robed man had a mysterious background and powerful methods. Instead of occupying a territory, he occupied all the essence spirit mines and released the Ascenders of the lower worlds. This person would leave after cultivating and would not linger. It was said that the purple-robed man was also someone who had ascended from the lower worlds. Almost all the Black Grade sects and factions in the vicinity were in danger. Initially, there were often fights between these Black Grade factions. However, because of the appearance of the purple-robed man, the Black Grade factions had a tacit understanding and quietened down to recuperate. Every sect and faction had many cultivators to track the purple-robed man and make preparations. At the borders of the Fiend domain, things were secretly set into motion and killing intent was hidden. Countless eyes were watching the purple-robed man in secret. Everyone did not know much about the purple-robed man. The only thing they were certain of was that the power he displayed was not at the level of a perfected immortal. Chapter 2155 Familiar Aura. 2155 Familiar Aura. Scarlet Dark Valley was originally an ordinary Black Grade faction at the borders of the Fiend domain. However, in the past 10,000 years, it rose rapidly in the vicinity. Some people said that the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley once obtained a huge opportunity. He entered an ancient ruin by mistake and obtained an ancient diagram. His cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds and his combat strength increased exponentially, sweeping through all the Heaven Immortal experts in this territory. Later on, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley retreated and had not appeared for thousands of years. It was said that the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was in seclusion cultivation and was prepared to break through. When he reappeared, he would advance to the Perfected One realm and become a perfected fiend. In the upper world, cultivators of the Black, Earth and Heaven essence realms could be referred to as immortals no matter which Dharmic Tao they cultivated. They were Black, Earth and Heaven immortals. It was said that the founder of this cultivation system was someone from the immortal Tao to begin with. Some people said that the great emperor who ruled over the previous era came from the immortal sections. As time passed by, some worlds began to have their own unique titles, such as Black and Earth Witches of the Witch World. The difference was negligible. It was the same for the heavenly world. In the Fiend domain and Pure Land of Bliss, the cultivators of the Black, Earth and Heaven essence realms retained their immortal sect traditions. However, once one condensed a Tao fruit and entered the Perfected One realm, the way they were addressed would change. A Perfected One cultivator of the Fiend domain was known as a Perfected Fiend, and a Perfected One cultivator of the Pure Land of Bliss was known as an Arhat. If the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley were to condense a Tao fruit and become a Perfected Fiend, the level of Scarlet Dark Valley would rise as well and become an Earth Grade faction. At that time, all the sects and factions in the vicinity would have to bow down. For thousands of years, although the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was in seclusion and did not appear, his reputation grew. It was because the only son of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili, had risen at a speed not inferior to the Valley Master or even faster. In the territory of thousands of kilometers around Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili was already invincible when he was only at the level 8 Heaven Essence realm. It could be said that Heaven Immortal Qili was even stronger than the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley in the past. To everyone, Heaven Immortal Qili was younger than 100,000 years old, and had unlimited potential. His future accomplishments would be even greater than the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley. This day. Scarlet Dark Valley, Main Hall. Heaven Immortal Qili sat high in the middle with narrowed eyes that shone with a cold glint as he looked at the cultivators beneath him. There were dozens of people in the main hall, and they were all Heaven Immortals. Furthermore, the cultivation of these Heaven Immortals was not weak. The weakest were at least grade 7. Almost all the Heaven Immortals in the hall were the protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley. They had noble statuses in the valley and led many Earth Immortals and Black Immortals. On the left and right of Heaven Immortal Qili, there were 2 people sitting right beside him. Both of them were grade 9 Heaven Immortals. Tianhuang and Pai Feng were the main protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley. Young Master, I've just received news that the purple-robed man has appeared once more. From the looks of it, there's a high chance he'll pass by Scarlet Dark Valley. Young Master, let me bring some men and we'll definitely be able to kill this person. Below, a burly man stood up and shouted. Protector who? You won't be able to defeat that person with your strength. A protector with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks sneered and mocked. Humph, if I can't, can you? Protector who asked loudly with widened eyes. Naturally, I can't either. In my opinion, the few of us might not be a match for that person even if we joined forces. That person's background is mysterious. I'm afraid only the young master can suppress him personally, the person said. When he heard that, Heaven Immortal Qili revealed an imperceptible smile, as though he was satisfied. Tianhuang, Pai Feng, what do you guys think? Heaven Immortal Qili looked at the 2 protectors on his left and right. Tianhuang said in a deep voice, Young Master, for the past 1,000 years, this person has appeared every once in a while and has already destroyed close to 10 black-grade factions such as Yellow Sand Palace, 8 Limbs Mountain, Evil Moon Temple, Purple Star Temple and Malevolent Fiend Pavilion. From what I know, those factions also had Heaven Immortal experts presiding over. However, they were all killed by this person. He's definitely hostile. Hostile? Heaven Immortal Qili harumphed coldly and said slowly, Such a person is not allowed in my territory. I want him dead. Tianhuang said. In my opinion, there's no need for us to fight him. Why don't we try and recruit him as our subordinate? Pai Feng nodded slightly. Young Master, I agree with the left protector as well. Heaven Immortal Qili's expression turned cold as he asked, Why? Do you guys not have confidence in Scarlet Dark Valley or me? Can I kill this person with my capabilities? I don't dare to say anything about the entire Fiend domain, but in this land, I reign supreme against everyone beneath the perfected immortal realm. Your methods are naturally unparalleled, young master. Tianhuang and Pai Feng said hurriedly. Pausing for a moment, Tianhuang continued. However, that person is not weak and can be considered as a talent. If you can take him under your wing, it will increase your reputation. Yes, you do have a point. Heaven Immortal Qili murmured softly. Pai Feng said deeply. How about this? If that person comes, we'll give him a chance first. If he's tactful, you can take advantage of the situation and take him under his wing, young master. If he's tactless, we'll kill him on the spot. Sure, that's fine. Heaven Immortal Qili nodded slightly, very satisfied with that suggestion. 10 days later. The moment the Martial Dao Prime Body arrived at Scarlet Dark Valley, a group of cultivators welcomed him. The 2 people in the lead were the main protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley, Tianhuang and Pai Feng. The 2 protectors released their spirit consciousnesses and sized up the Martial Dao Prime Body carefully but could not make out anything. Fellow Taoist, our young master invites you in. Tianhuang cupped his fists and said, Who is your young master? The Martial Dao Prime Body wore a cold mask and asked expressionlessly. Heaven Immortal Qili. Pai Feng said. Our young master has already prepared a banquet and is waiting for you to take your seat, fellow Taoist. The Martial Dao Prime Body was not interested in this young master or his banquet. His only goal was cultivation resources. He wanted to cultivate as soon as possible and deduce the martial Tao. Just as the martial Tao prime body was about to reject, his expression changed and he narrowed his eyes slightly, looking into the depths of Scarlet Dark Valley. Over there, he sensed a familiar aura that he had not felt for a long time. An extremely intense hatred surged into the skies, hating the heavens and the earth and filled with negative emotions that were berserk. When Tianhuang saw the martial Tao prime body looking into the distance, as though he was moved, he said, "That's the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley. The young master has been waiting for a long time. All right, I'll go take a look." The martial Tao prime body clenched his fists instinctively and said indifferently. Tianhuang and Pai Feng thought that this was merely the martial Tao prime body's personality. Although they could hear the coldness in his tone, they did not take it seriously. Furthermore, everything would be under their control once he entered the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley. Chapter 2156 Battle Slave. 2156 Battle Slave. Our young master heard about your recent achievements and admires you very much, Protector Tianhuang of Scarlet Dark Valley said. This time round, when he heard that you were about to pass by this place, the young master specially set up a banquet and even invited the sect masters of some sects and factions in the vicinity. When these important figures heard your name, they wanted to take a look as well. Although Tianhuang's words were flattering the martial Tao prime body on the surface, there were two layers of meaning in his words. First, the young master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili, was extremely prestigious in the nearby territory. Second, when he mentioned the presence of sect masters of some sects and factions, he was secretly exerting pressure on the martial Tao prime body. The eyes of the martial Tao prime body were deep and he wore a cold silver mask. No one could tell if his expression changed. He did not reply when he heard Tianhuang's words. At the side, Pai Feng narrowed his eyes and suddenly asked, "May I know your name, fellow Taoist?" "Desolate Martial," the martial Tao prime body said. Pai Feng rolled his eyes and said in a seemingly casual manner, "There are some rumors outside that you ascended from the lower worlds." "I don't believe such words." "I'm from the lower worlds," the martial Tao prime body said indifferently. "I ascended less than 1,000 years ago." Tianhuang and Pai Feng exchanged glances. Both could see the doubt in the other's eyes. How could he destroy a group of sects and factions after ascending for 1,000 years? Everyone flew through the air and arrived at the main hall of Scarlet Dark Valley before long. The martial Tao prime body surveyed his surroundings. The familiar aura earlier on was in the vicinity. However, it had vanished, and he could not determine its exact location right away. In front of the hall, a black-haired, scarlet-robed man sat on a high seat. His eyes were long and narrow as he looked down at the martial Tao prime body with a cold glint in the depths of his eyes. If he was not wrong, this should be the young master of Scarlet Dark Valley, Heaven Immortal Qili. 2 rows of cultivators sat beneath Heaven Immortal Qili on both sides. The martial Tao prime body swept his spirit consciousness and could tell that the 2 rows of cultivators were top-tier Heaven Immortal experts. Swoosh! 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 The moment the martial Tao prime body entered the hall, 2 rows of Heaven Immortal experts turned to look. Some of them had cold expressions, some of them were expressionless, and some of them did not conceal the hostility on their faces. Heaven Immortal Qili did not stand up and raised his head slightly. "This must be the mysterious purple-robed man who has been famous for the past 1,000 years, right?" Tianhuang stood out and said in a deep voice. "Young master, this is him. His name is Desolate Martial." "Desolate Martial?" Heaven Immortal Qili smirked. "That title is rather ordinary." Instantly, laughter broke out on both sides of the hall. Tianhuang pointed to the top Heaven Immortal experts in 2 rows and introduced. "This is the Palace Lord of Peerless Palace, this is the Pavilion Master of Immortal Slaying Pavilion, this is the Stronghold Lord of Heaven Azura Stronghold, and this is the Sect Master of Wind Fire Sect." Naturally, their titles were resounding, such as Immortal Slaying and Peerless. Tianhuang introduced the Heaven Immortal experts the entire way, but none of them stood up. They merely looked at the martial Dao Prime body coldly. The martial Dao Prime body did not seem to have heard Tianhuang's introduction and did not move at all. His eyes were half closed as he searched for the source of that hatred. Piak! Unable to hold it in any longer, the Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion slammed the table and stood up, harumphing coldly. Desolate Marshal, how arrogant! Why aren't you removing your mask after coming to Scarlet Dark Valley? Let's see your true appearance! Exactly. The Stronghold Lord of Heaven Azura Stronghold sneered. How should we know where you came from if you're hiding the entire time, cowardly rat? The sect masters present were all from black-grade factions in this territory, and had long heard of the methods of the martial Dao Prime body. If not for the fact that they were in Scarlet Dark Valley, they would not have dared to speak to the martial Dao Prime body in such a manner. Everyone, there's no need to be angry. Heaven Immortal Qili pretended to be magnanimous, and waved it off. Extraordinary people naturally have a strange way of doing things. Since this fellow Taoist insists on wearing his mask, he can have it on. Desolate Marshal, aren't you going to thank our young master? Tianhuang stood behind the martial Dao Prime body and narrowed his eyes. When the martial Dao Prime body entered the hall, he did not bow to anyone or even say anything. Everyone was already displeased. Although Heaven Immortal Qili did not say it explicitly, his eyes were already filled with killing intent. Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime body stomped his feet and asked, What's beneath this hall? He could vaguely sense that the source of the hatred should be beneath the hall. Beneath this is the most outstanding battle slave I've ever reared. At the mention of that, Heaven Immortal Qili was a little smug. He looked at the sect masters on the 2 rows in the hall and asked with a smile, I wonder if any of the people you guys brought this time round can defeat my battle slave. Fellow Taoist Qili, I found a moon-devouring heavenly wolf this time round. Although its bloodline is impure, it's extremely ferocious and can compete against your battle slave. As he said that, the Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion waved his sleeves and threw out a gigantic cage. Within was a gigantic wolf that was 100 feet tall with short silver fur. The gigantic wolf's cultivation was at the level 9 Black Essence realm. It bared its fangs and had a ferocious gaze. The fur on its body shone with a strange silver glow, and its eyes vaguely reflected 2 round moons that were incomparably demonic. It was said that this lineage of the wolf race could devour the full moon in the firmaments. Heaven Immortal Qili burst into laughter. Good, good, good! The moon-devouring heavenly wolf doesn't look weak. I wonder how many slashes it can take from my battle slave! Come on out! Heaven Immortal Qili waved his palm and the ground in the middle of the hall suddenly cracked. A skinny figure wrapped in chains rushed out from the ground with a pitch-black saber in his right hand, filled with torrential hatred. That person's hair was disheveled and he was covered in injuries. Many of the wounds on his body had yet to form scabs and some of his flesh had already rotted. Kill! The moment the figure arrived in the hall, he charged towards Heaven Immortal Qili with bloodshot eyes. Humph! However, before he even took a few steps, Heaven Immortal Qili sneered and his spirit consciousness moved. Tiny spikes popped out from the chains on the person's body and pierced into his body like thorns. Instantly blood flowed from that person's body. Even the person's kneecap was pierced by the thorns. As though he could not feel any pain, he did not make a single sound. His body trembled and he almost fell to the ground. However, he still glared at Heaven Immortal Qili fiercely, wanting nothing more than to skin the latter alive. Hee hee. At the side, the Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion chuckled. Fellow Taoist Qili, you've captured this battle slave for many years. To think that you've yet to subdue him. Even now, he wants to kill his master. It's fine, I'll torture those who are disobedient bit by bit. Heaven Immortal Qili said with a smile. This is the outcome of anyone who dares to disobey me in my territory. As he said that, Heaven Immortal Qili turned to look at the martial Dao Prime body. His words were meant for the martial Dao Prime body. However, the martial Dao Prime body did not seem to have heard anything and merely looked at the battle slave who was covered in injuries not far away with a shuddering killing intent. Chapter 2157. Can you even withstand my punch? 2157. Can you even withstand my punch? The martial Tao prime body did not conceal his killing intent at all, and the entire hall was filled with a murderous aura instantly. The sect masters of the various sects and factions stood up one after another and looked at the martial Tao prime body coldly with wary expressions. This was Scarlet Dark Valley. The top experts of the Heaven Essence realm were all gathered here, with Heaven Immortal Qili presiding over the situation. Everyone believed that even if the martial Tao prime body had extraordinary methods, he would not be able to cause much trouble. Do you know who he is? The gaze of the martial Tao prime body landed on Heaven Immortal Qili as he pointed at the figure trapped by the thorn chains not far away and asked slowly. Due to the cover of the silver mask, the voice of the martial Tao prime body changed. However, the silver mask could not conceal the cold killing intent in that voice. Heaven Immortal Qili had a fearless expression as he sneered. Him? He's just an ant that ascended from the lower worlds. Right now, he's only my slave, and his life and death depends on a single thought of mine. Is that so? The martial Tao prime body said. He came from the same world as me. When they heard that, everyone in the hall had different expressions. The blood vessels in the figure's eyes seemed to have faded, and he no longer struggled. However, he could not react for a moment and looked lost. The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace sneered. In that case, the rumors are true. Indeed, you're from the lower worlds. No matter how strong you are, you're destined to be a lowlife. The sect master of Wind-Fire Sect raised his brows slightly and said mockingly. Why? You want to intervene and save this battle slave? Ha ha! Everyone in the hall burst into laughter. Heaven Immortal Qili looked down with a proud expression and said slowly, Desolate Marshal, let me tell you, if you don't submit to me today, don't even think about leaving alive. Desolate Marshal. When he heard that, the figure shuddered and spun around, looking at the martial Tao prime body in disbelief. However, through the silver mask, he could not see the appearance of the martial Tao prime body and could not confirm it right away. Brother Yen, it's me. The martial Tao prime body nodded at him. The cultivator wrapped in thorns was the Azura of Tianhuang mainland, Yen Beichen. Su Zimo's two true bodies had ascended. After thousands of years, he finally met an old friend from Tianhuang mainland who was in the same generation as him. Ever since the Green Lotus true body ascended, he had encountered countless dangers in the divine firmament immortal domain, and every step was treacherous. Relying on many trump cards and encounters, including the protection of seniors of Tianhuang mainland, the Green Lotus true body gradually rose and eventually joined Heaven and Earth Academy, escaping from danger for the time being. The environment of the upper world was way too vile. Even for the Green Lotus true body, the situation was so difficult after his ascension, let alone the others. Although it was extremely rare for the Azura to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm, his physical and mental condition was extremely poor, and he was tortured beyond recognition. The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao prime body had long scanned the Azura's body. The Azura's essence spirit was severely injured and filled with cracks. The reason why he could still struggle and release his combat strength was because his body was driven by an innate hatred. The hatred was so strong that it even covered the injuries on his essence spirit and suppressed the negative effects of his essence spirit injuries on his body. The Hatred Sutra was indeed a top-tier dermic formulation. Most cultivation techniques of the lower worlds relied on the environment of the lower world, spirit chi, dermic powers or bloodline. Therefore, most cultivation techniques became useless after ascending to the upper world. However, the Hatred Sutra was different. The foundation of cultivating the Hatred Sutra was the hatred in one's heart. Be it in the lower or upper worlds, be it with spirit chi or heaven and earth essence chi, the hatred in one's heart would always exist. With hatred, one could cultivate the Hatred Sutra. That was also the reason why the Azura was able to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm despite the lack of cultivation resources and being imprisoned. Of course, the Hatred Sutra had its drawbacks as well. The intense hatred could suppress the injuries on the Azura's body for the time being. However, As time passed, the injuries in his body accumulated and turned more serious. He would definitely collapse eventually. Yan Beichen panted slightly, and every single breath he took emitted a strong blood stench. Although he could not see the appearance of the martial Dao Prime body and there was a difference in his voice, he knew in his heart who the purple-robed man before him was. There was only a single person in Tianhuang mainland who would address him as such. You! Yan Beichen looked at the martial Dao Prime body. The initial excitement in his eyes gradually dissipated and he revealed a worried expression. After he ascended, he was imprisoned here. He knew very well how strong, terrifying and powerful the enemies he was facing were. They were completely unstoppable. Su Zimo had only ascended 2,000 years earlier than him. How could he have grown to the point where he was comparable to these experts? Escape on your own, Yan Beichen said softly. Without my permission, no one can dream of leaving today. Heaven Immortal Qili said coldly and waved his palm. With a bang, the heavy door of the hall closed rapidly. Every single tile in the hall was made from rare metal ores. Once the door to the hall was closed, it was almost equivalent to a prison. Even Heaven Immortals would have difficulty breaking through it with brute force. That's right. The martial Dao Prime body nodded and murmured softly. Without my permission, no one can dream of leaving today. He seemed to be repeating Heaven Immortal Qili's words. However, everyone in the hall suddenly felt their hearts skip a beat and shuddered, as though a calamity was about to descend. Before that thought was finished, the martial Dao Prime body suddenly attacked. He strode forward and arrived before Heaven Immortal Qili instantly, punching. There were no unnecessary movements, it was just a normal punch. However, that punch contained the will of the martial Dao and interweaved all the Dao and dermic arts of the martial Dao Prime body. It was unshakable and indestructible. Heaven Immortal Qili's expression changed starkly. The contempt and arrogance in his eyes vanished instantly. Under the envelopment of that punch, all his past pride, glory and confidence were crushed instantly. He could sense a strong aura of death. Astral swap! Heaven Immortal Qili roared and channeled his essence spirit to its limits, releasing a supreme divine power. He did not dare to take the martial Dao Prime body head-on, and could only circulate astral swap, wanting to shift the power released by that punch elsewhere. The power of divine powers spread. Under the effect of astral swap, a terrifying power was spun to the side by Heaven Immortal Qili and descended on the Palace Lord of Peerless Palace. Bang! The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace, a grade 9 Heaven Immortal, had just summoned his dermic treasure when he was turned into a blood mist by the punch before he could react. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot without the chance to use blood rebirth. Heaven Immortal Qili seized the opportunity to retreat dozens of feet. Suddenly, his figure paused and trembled slightly with endless fear in his eyes. Right in front of everyone, the body of Heaven Immortal Qili exploded as well. Broken limbs flew everywhere, and fresh blood splattered on the ground. You overestimate yourself. The martial Dao Prime body sneered. Can you even withstand my punch? Although astral swap neutralized most of the punch from the martial Dao Prime body, the martial Dao will and dermic arts contained in that punch still struck Heaven Immortal Qili and ruptured his body. Chapter 2158 2158 Six Paths of Reincarnation. 2158 Six Paths of Reincarnation. Everyone in the Hall of Scarlet Dark Valley was shocked. In everyone's hearts, Heaven Immortal Qili was already the number one Heaven Immortal of this radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, and no one was his match. But now, Heaven Immortal Qili could not even withstand a single punch from Desolate Martial. There were dozens of Heaven Immortal experts in the hall. Although everyone could not see through the cultivation realm of the martial Dao Prime body, they could sense the aura and power released by his attack. The power of that punch had not reached the level of a perfected immortal, and was still at the Heaven Immortal realm. However, that single punch killed 2 grade 9 Heaven Immortals. The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace was implicated for no reason. Before he could attack, his essence spirit was destroyed because of Heaven Immortal Qili's astral swap. How could anyone defend against such power? Everyone, let's attack together! No matter how strong that person is, he won't be able to defend against our combined attacks. Right then, a divine light burst forth from the blood mist of heaven immortal Qi and escaped to the end of the hall. It was his essence spirit. The essence spirit wore an essence spirit armor. However, the essence spirit armor was filled with cracks and was completely crippled. It was an essence spirit dermic treasure. If not for that dermic treasure, he would have died earlier on. Heaven immortal Qi regenerated his body and roared with a menacing expression. Everyone in the hall was invigorated when they saw Heaven immortal Qi use blood rebirth. Initially, they wanted to retreat. Now, they were eager and murderous. Kill! As the main protectors of Scarlet Hell Valley, Tianhuang and Pai Feng stood out right away and hollered. Each of them summoned a flying sword and stabbed it towards the martial Dao prime body. At the same time, the two of them joined forces and changed their hand seals. Hell Dao, Hungry Ghost Dao, Beast Dao, Azura Dao, Human Dao, Heavenly Dao. Instantly, the two of them released 3 divine powers each and fused rapidly in midair, gradually forming a gigantic reincarnation cycle. Condense, 6 paths of reincarnation. Tianhuang and Pai Feng were telepathic and shouted at the same time. 6 paths of reincarnation was a supreme divine power. Furthermore, it was the most ferocious killing method among supreme divine powers and could be ranked in the top 10. In the upper world, there was even a legend that the 6 paths of reincarnation was originally a peerless divine power. However, throughout history, almost no one could break through the core dermic Dao of that divine power. As time passed by, 6 paths of reincarnation was gradually relegated into a supreme divine power. Even so, that supreme divine power was definitely not something that ordinary heaven immortal experts could comprehend and release. Tianhuang and Pai Feng were both grade 9 heaven immortals. However, either of them could release the complete 6 paths of reincarnation alone. Comprehending 6 different obscurities was only one facet of things. More importantly, if the essence spirit was not condensed and strong enough, when 6 paths of reincarnation was released, the essence spirit would be pulled in by the 6 paths and enter reincarnation. A supreme divine power that can possibly kill the caster before anyone else is killed. Who would dare release it casually? Therefore, the two of them took another path and comprehended 3 of them respectively. When they synthesized with one another, 6 paths of reincarnation could be released. Although it sounded simple, the two of them had practiced this move for countless years and had failed countless times. If anything went wrong, it would be difficult for the 6 paths to synthesize and form the cycle of reincarnation. This was their greatest trump card. When 6 paths of reincarnation was released, even Heaven Immortal Qi had to avoid it. The expressions of many Heaven Immortal experts in the hall changed starkly, and they did not dare to approach at all, afraid that their essence spirits would be sucked in by the 6 paths and enter reincarnation. The eyes of the martial Dao prime body were deep. Instead of retreating, he charged towards the gigantic wheel in midair. You must have a death wish! When he saw that, Heaven Immortal Qi eyes lit up. Tianhuang and Pai Feng were delighted as well. If the body fell into 6 paths of reincarnation, it would definitely be minced by the cycle of reincarnation. The essence spirit would also enter the cycle of reincarnation and die. The only way to defend against 6 paths of reincarnation was to use a supreme divine power of the same level to take it head-on. Otherwise, he had to avoid it. If he wanted to defend against 6 paths of reincarnation with his body or other methods, that would be equivalent to committing suicide. Everyone in the hall could almost see the martial Dao prime body's essence spirit being destroyed the next moment. Phew! After the martial Dao prime body fell into 6 paths of reincarnation, the joy on everyone's faces gradually froze and was replaced by shock, surprise and fear. The martial Dao prime body stood in midair motionlessly and his black hair danced. 6 paths of reincarnation circled around him and gradually stopped. It could not even injure a single hair of the martial Dao prime body, let alone destroy his body. Not only that, the intrusion of the martial Tao Prime body caused 6 paths of reincarnation to show signs of collapse. "How dare you embarrass yourself with such methods?" the martial Tao Prime body sneered. His existence was a variable to begin with. He was beyond the 3 realms and 5 elements. He did not belong in the cycle of reincarnation at all. Although the power of 6 paths of reincarnation was strong, it could not hurt him at all. "I'll let you guys witness what the true 6 paths of reincarnation is." The eyes of the martial Tao Prime body lit up and his body shuddered. His blood chi surged and dispersed the surrounding gigantic wheel. Immediately after, he conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands and released 6 divine powers rapidly, gathering in midair to form another gigantic wheel. Psst! The crowd was shocked. He released the complete 6 paths of reincarnation on his own. The difference between him and Tianze and Pai Feng was obvious. Furthermore, although Tianze and Pai Feng could join forces to condense 6 paths of reincarnation, there were more or less flaws in that supreme divine power. However, the martial Tao Prime body's 6 paths of reincarnation had no flaws. Although it was still a supreme divine power, the might of this 6 paths of reincarnation was much stronger than the one Tianze and Pai Feng had just released. The martial Tao Prime body had once smelted countless divine powers and secret skills in the Kunlun ruins of Tianhuang mainland. It was naturally understandable that he could release 6 paths of reincarnation. However, the martial Tao technique focused on cultivating oneself. Therefore, the martial Tao Prime body rarely used those divine powers and secret skills in battle. Boom! Boom! The moment the previous 6 paths of reincarnation collapsed, an even more terrifying 6 paths of reincarnation appeared in midair. Although the martial Tao Prime body was free from the cycle of reincarnation, the same could not be said for the many cultivators present. The first to be struck were Tianze and Pai Feng. The 2 protectors of Scarlet Dark Valley were engulfed by 6 paths of reincarnation before they could even withstand a single breath. Their bodies were shattered and their essence spirits were destroyed. 8 heaven immortal experts in the vicinity hurriedly released their supreme divine powers, wanting to fight. However, those supreme divine powers dissipated the moment they made contact with 6 paths of reincarnation. The 8 heaven immortal experts were not spared either, and were dragged into reincarnation. Against the suppression of 6 paths of reincarnation, their dermic treasures and weapons shattered into dust. Firmament slash! Moon-striking comet! Finger yellow springs! Boom! 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 The remaining heaven immortal experts in the hall released supreme divine powers one after another, creating raging tides like dark clouds that blanketed the city. In midair, divine light shone and sword chi streaked everywhere with a chilling intent. Dermic treasures tore through the air one after another, and weaved into a dense net that descended from the skies, enveloping the martial Tao Prime body in 6 paths of reincarnation. Chapter 2159 Arrival of the Perfected Fiend. 2159 Arrival of the Perfected Fiend. Although 6 paths of reincarnation were strong, it could not defend against the combined attack of many supreme divine powers. In the blink of an eye, the cycle of reincarnation shattered. Many supreme divine powers and dermic treasures descended as well. The gaze of the martial Tao Prime body intensified and 9 purple halos burst forth from his back, interweaving with mysterious runes to condense the martial Tao technique. 9 fate rings. It was as though shackles had been broken from the body of the martial Tao Prime body and his strength rose continuously. When the dermic treasures and divine powers descended, they were sent flying by the 9 fate rings behind the martial Tao Prime body and were destroyed. Roar! Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime body opened his mouth and roared. The moment the voice sounded, fluctuations visible to the naked eye appeared in the void and surged in all directions like water ripples. It was as though there was a dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a crane's cry, a horse's neigh, a wolf's howl, an ape's cry, a tiger's roar, a dog's bark. Instantly, as though living beings of the 10,000 races possessed the martial Tao Prime body, they howled into the skies at the same time, letting out a deafening roar. This was a sound domain technique created by the martial Dao Prime Body after smelting many sound domain secret skills. It was called the Myriad Being Sound. Millions of living beings released sound domain secret skills at the same time. The ripples spread and swept past the many heaven immortal experts in midair. Everyone swept by the ripples stiffened. Initially, the hall was filled with commotion. In the blink of an eye, it turned silent. Many heaven immortal experts froze in midair, motionlessly. It was as though time had stopped and space had frozen. The next moment, those figures exploded into blood mists that blossomed in midair like blood-colored fireworks. The Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion, the Sect Master of Wind Fire Sect and everyone else, their bodies and spirit were destroyed by the Myriad Being's sound. Under the protection of the martial Dao Prime Body, the Azura was not affected at all. However, everyone in the hall suffered immense losses. Cultivators further away were severely injured as well and fell from midair. Heaven Immortal Qi Li had just released blood rebirth to reconstruct his body when his body shattered once more against the sound domain secret skill. A blood mist filled the hall and tragic cries sounded repeatedly. The Heaven Immortal experts who were lucky to survive only wanted to escape from this place as soon as possible. However, the door to the hall was tightly shut, and it was difficult for them to break through with their severely injured bodies. On the other side, Heaven Immortal Qi Li's body was shattered consecutively, and he had expended a lot of blood qi. Although he reconstructed his body quickly, his face was pale and his body was weak, he did not have much combat strength left. Although everyone was cultivators of the Fiend domain, and had killed countless people since they started cultivating, they were scared out of their wits by the martial Dao Prime Body. In the eyes of everyone, the person with the silver mask and purple robe was the true Fiend. Father! Right then, Heaven Immortal Qi Li crushed a messenger talisman from his storage bag and roared. If you don't come out of seclusion, your child in Scarlet Dark Valley will be destroyed. The moment he said that, an extremely domineering energy fluctuation came from outside the hall and a tremendous might enveloped down. That pressure had far surpassed the power of a Heaven Immortal. When Heaven Immortal Qi Li and the others sensed that aura, they were invigorated and hope reignited in their eyes. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley has come out of seclusion. From that aura, he should have already condensed the Dao fruit and become a perfected fiend. Ha ha ha, we're fine now. Desolate Marshal, you'll definitely die today with the birth of a perfected fiend. The remaining Heaven Immortal experts were excited and the fear from earlier on vanished. Heaven Immortal Qi Li straightened his body as well and glared at the martial Dao Prime Body coldly. Gritting his teeth, he said frostily, Desolate Marshal, my father has already come out of seclusion. I'll tame you into a battle slave and command you for the rest of my life. Perfected Fiend. The Azura shuddered. Although his cultivation realm was not high, he knew the difference between the Perfected One realm and the Heaven Essence realm. It was an insurmountable chasm. Be it the Black, Earth, or Heaven Essence realms, all their methods still circulated Heaven and Earth Essence Qi. After entering the Perfected One realm and absorbing Heaven and Earth Essence Qi would be baptized by the Dao fruit and circulate out, forming true essence that was even more condensed. Essence Qi was incorporeal while true essence was corporeal. This was a complete change in quality. Once one condensed true essence, it could transform into many divine weapons and dermic treasure armors. A single stream of true essence power was enough to destroy supreme divine powers. Therefore, experts of the Perfected One realm, be it perfected immortals or perfected fiends, rarely released divine powers unless they were extremely powerful supreme or peerless divine powers. Can you do it? The Azura looked at the martial Dao Prime Body with a worried expression. The power released by the martial Dao Prime Body had far surpassed his imagination. However, he might not be able to defend against a perfected fiend. Your 9 fate rings might not be a match for the power of a perfected fiend. The voice of Heavenly Wolf sounded in the mind of the martial Dao Prime Body. In my opinion, it's better to retreat first. Given your movement technique, even if you have to bring someone along, This perfected fiend might not be able to catch up to you and you'll have a chance to escape. All these years, Heavenly Wolf had been imprisoned by the martial Tao Prime body and naturally knew a little about the Fate Ring realm. Furthermore, Heavenly Wolf came from the upper world to begin with and was naturally sharp. Who dares to act so brazenly in Scarlet Dark Valley? A howl sounded. Initially, it was far away. However, by the time the final word was said, it had already arrived above the hall. A perfected fiend? The martial Tao Prime body looked up with a divine glint in his eyes, eager to give it a shot. The Tao he cultivated was different from the dermic formulations of the Trichiliocosm. Therefore, he wanted to test how strong the so-called perfected One Realm, True Essence and perfected Fiend were. The martial Tao Prime body was confident. Even if he was defeated in a fight, he could escape unscathed with the Azura. Splash! The dome of the hall shattered and a figure with a violent aura descended rapidly. A terrifying essence spirit secret skill charged towards the martial Tao Prime body. The martial Tao Prime body frowned. He had not expected that the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley would activate his essence spirit secret skill instead of using true essence the moment he came out of seclusion. From a certain perspective, this was indeed a foolproof and most lethal method. The power of the essence spirit at the perfected One realm far surpassed the Heaven Essence realm. The power of an essence spirit secret skill would increase countless times after it was released through the Tao fruit. Even the number one heaven immortal of the entire Fiend domain and heavenly world might not be able to defend against the essence spirit secret skill of a perfected Fiend, let alone a grade 9 heaven immortal. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley released a killing move the moment he attacked, not giving the martial Tao Prime body any chance to resist. The martial Tao Prime body hesitated. A fight between essence spirits was way too dangerous. Although his martial spirit was condensed and might be able to defend against the attack of the essence spirit secret skill, it might not be completely unharmed. Once his martial spirit was damaged, all his methods and strength would be greatly reduced. Chapter 2160 Mask 2160 Mask. Let me return to my mask! Right then, Heavenly Wolf's voice suddenly sounded in the mind of the martial Tao Prime body. The martial Tao Prime body had long planted a seal on Heavenly Wolf's spirit consciousness. If he died, Heavenly Wolf's spirit consciousness would die as well. He was not worried that Heavenly Wolf would dare to try anything funny under such circumstances. The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao Prime body moved and sent Heavenly Wolf's spirit consciousness into the silver mask. Immediately after, the martial Tao Prime body suddenly felt a strange energy fluctuation from the silver mask on his face with a cold intent. The silver mask seemed to have transformed into a lake, and a menacing ghost face shrouded in black chi was vaguely reflected on it in a terrifying manner. All the cultivators in the hall who saw that face were scared out of their wits. The ghost face seemed to possess a powerful demonic power that could stir the fear in the depths of everyone's hearts and make them shudder. Even the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, who had already condensed his Tao fruit and became a perfected fiend, felt his heart skip a beat. When he saw that face, his mind was in chaos, as though countless mental demons were growing wildly and dancing. The Tao fruit that he had just condensed trembled slightly, and showed signs of collapse. At the same time, his essence spirit secret skill descended. The martial Tao Prime body had just channeled the martial spirit fire and was about to take it head-on when the essence spirit secret skill of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley struck the silver mask first. A perfected fiend essence spirit secret skill was so powerful that it could kill any heaven immortal expert. However, when the essence spirit secret skill struck the silver mask, it created ripples on it like a rock entering the ocean before vanishing. The martial Tao Prime body did not sense any impact on his essence spirit. Of course, the terrifying face on the silver mask vanished as well. The martial Tao Prime body narrowed his eyes slightly. This silver mask came from the upper world and fell together with the hell suppression tripod. It was naturally a treasure to be able to withstand the power of the heavenly tribulation. However, He had not expected the silver mask to be so powerful that it could defend against the essence spirit attack of a perfected fiend expert. Although Heavenly Wolf had no choice but to submit under his suppression, it clearly had many secrets. If he had the chance, he would make Heavenly Wolf spit out all those secrets. Everything else aside, the cultivation techniques and secret skills in Heavenly Wolf's memories were extremely useful to the Martial Dao Prime Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body put that thought aside for the time being in the face of a great enemy. In midair, when the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley saw that the ghost face on the silver mask seemed to have vanished, he shrugged his head and took a deep breath to compose himself. Although he had entered the Perfected One realm and condensed a Dao fruit, his cultivation realm had not stabilized completely because of the cry for help of Heaven Immortal Qili. If he took a few more glances at the ghost face, there was a high chance that the Dao fruit in his consciousness would collapse on the spot. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley realized that the silver mask was definitely an utmost treasure. Notwithstanding the fact that the mask could defend against his essence spirit secret skill, the ghost face that appeared earlier on must have a powerful background. Kill! The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley's killing intent surged and his blood chi surged. Circulating to its limits, his entire body was like a gigantic black hole that absorbed heaven and earth essence chi wildly. The perfected fiend circulated his cultivation technique and absorbed essence chi with a terrifying might as though he was devouring a whale. A tremendous amount of heaven and earth essence chi entered his body through the top of his head and surged into the Dao fruit. Through the baptism and refinement of the Dao fruit, it was transformed into true essence and released, flowing through his limbs and 8 meridians. The entire process was completed in an instant. The next moment, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley moved. Between his hands, pitch-black true essence surged like ink and rapidly formed a gigantic saber that slashed towards the Martial Dao Prime Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body had a fearless expression, and his eyes lit up. His blood chi rumbled and the purple glow of the 9 fate rings behind him intensified as he strode forward and punched. He truly doesn't know what's good for him. To think that he would fight against true essence with his body. Ha ha ha, this ignorant desolate martial is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In the eyes of Heaven Immortal Qili and the others, although the aura of the Martial Dao Prime Body was not disadvantaged, his actions were like striking a stone with an egg. Boom! The fist and saber collided with a deafening bang. Everyone in the hall widened their eyes in shock. Immediately after, a purple and black halo of power burst forth from the collision point of the fist and saber and spread in all directions like a tsunami. Against the impact of such a terrifying power, the entire hall could not withstand it at all and shattered, causing countless boulders to roll down and dust to fly. In just a single exchange, the Hall of Scarlet Dark Valley was reduced to ruins. Heaven Immortal Qili and the others shook off the dust on their bodies and looked over hurriedly. In midair, the Martial Dao Prime Body and the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley were still in the posture of their fists and sabers colliding motionlessly, as though they were frozen in midair. There was still a domineering power surging around the two of them, forming an invisible barrier. Dust and gravel could not enter at all. Both of them were spotlessly clean. Psst! Heaven Immortal Qili and the others grit their teeth and gasped. This desolate martial that appeared out of nowhere could defend against the power of a perfected fiend. You can't defend against it! Right then, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley roared. In his consciousness, the Dao Fruit Fiend chi coiled and a halo shone behind his head. His aura surged and the fiend saber condensed from the true essence in his hands intensified. The Martial Dao Prime Body shuddered and cracks appeared on the 9 fate rings behind him. They were on the brink of collapse. Thud! 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 The Martial Dao Prime Body retreated continuously. Each time he retreated, a lotus flower would appear beneath his feet. The supreme divine power, lotus with every step. As the Martial Dao Prime Body retreated, he made use of lotus with every step to transform the power that surged into his body into lotus flowers beneath his feet. When released, he was completely unharmed. The power of the 9 fate rings was still slightly inferior compared to the true essence of a perfected fiend. In reality, the ordinary level 9 fate ring realm could only fight against grade 9 heaven immortals. However, the martial Tao prime body was the ancestor of the martial Tao and was a variable to begin with. Using his body as a furnace, he refined countless divine powers, secret skills and ancient sutras. Coupled with the martial spirit fire, Dragon Phoenix Flame, Tribulation Fire and Red Lotus Karmic Fire that were tempered day and night, this body was even more terrifying than the Green Lotus True Body. That was the reason why the martial Tao Prime Body could defend against the attack of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, and retreat unscathed. To think that you would be able to defend against my slash and not die! The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley glared at the martial Tao Prime Body and said slowly with a cold tone, "Let's see how many more slashes you can withstand." Before his sentence was finished, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley channeled his true essence once more. The pitch-black true essence circled around the Fiend saber, causing its power to intensify, and it charged towards the martial Tao Prime Body with a torrential ferocity. Chapter 2161 Peerless Divine Power. 2161 Peerless Divine Power. Against the attack of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, the gaze of the martial Tao Prime Body intensified. Instead of retreating, he advanced and his blood chi surged, channeling to its limits instantly. Immediately after, the figure of the martial Tao Prime Body vanished. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley could not help but be stunned when his attack came to nothing. He released his spirit consciousness right away and surveyed his surroundings warily. What sort of methods were those? Illusion technique? Invisibility? Teleportation? The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley could not make a judgment right away. If it was teleportation, the martial Tao Prime Body should have reappeared. However, he could not see any traces of the martial Tao Prime Body at all. The strange thing was that he could sense that the martial Tao Prime Body was still here. It was as though the martial Tao Prime Body came from all directions and was ubiquitous and omnipresent. He could not identify the latter's exact location. "Come out if you have the guts! Don't hide!" The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley hollered with a sharp gaze. He gripped the Fiend saber condensed from true essence with both hands and did not dare to relax. "Since you've slashed me, test out my bloodline phenomenon as well." The voice of the martial Tao Prime Body sounded erratically, as though it came from every corner, and was beside the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley. He was not the only one. The remaining people in the hall, including Heaven Immortal Chili and the others, were bewildered as well. They widened their eyes and looked around, wanting to find the source of the sound. "It's so hot!" Right then, a Heaven Immortal expert felt his body heat up and the surrounding temperature seemed to be rising rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it was already unbearable for him. That person was already drenched in sweat. The other Heaven Immortal experts were flushed red and sweating as well. One of them could not withstand it and sped outside. However, he did not walk far before he collided against a gigantic, tough and scorching iron board and fell from midair. "Ah!" The person let out a tragic cry. His body was burned to a pulp and green smoke billowed. That tragic cry attracted everyone's attention. The next moment, everyone's expressions changed. Around them, a red curved iron wall that connected heaven and earth appeared faintly. It was like a gigantic furnace that accommodated everyone in Scarlet Dark Valley. The bloodline phenomenon of the martial Tao Prime Body, Heaven and Earth Furnace. Cultivating the martial Tao was mainly to cultivate one's body and bloodline. One had to constantly tap into their potential and release that power. In other words, this bloodline phenomenon was the strongest technique of the martial Tao Prime Body and his strength was at its peak. Before he ascended, the martial Tao Prime Body gradually perfected this bloodline phenomenon. Using his body as the foundation, he viewed his body as the universe and replaced heaven and earth with the furnace of his body. Creation was the process, yin and yang were the charcoal and all living beings were bronze. Coupled with the martial spirit fire, Tribulation Fire, Dragon Phoenix Flame, and the Red Lotus Karmic Fire, the Heaven and Earth Furnace was produced. The bloodline phenomenon was augmented by 4 flames and was extremely powerful. This was only one facet of it. The dermic Tao contained within was mysterious and profound. Its boldness was unprecedented. Apart from the Azura, who was safe and sound under the protection of the martial Tao prime body, the other heaven immortal experts present could not defend against it. Flames burst forth from their bodies, and within a few breaths, their essence, spirits, and bodies were burned to ashes. Heaven immortal Qili died as well. "I'm a perfected fiend. You think you can kill me with a mere bloodline phenomenon?" The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley hollered with a menacing expression. He absorbed heaven and earth essence Qi wildly and transformed it into pitch-black true essence that surrounded his body like ink, blocking the ubiquitous and omnipresent flames in the furnace. But soon, his gaze changed and his face turned pale. To the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley's horror, the true essence circulating in his body had already begun to evaporate under the heat of the heaven and earth furnace. Pissed! The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was shocked. Even true essence could not defend against that power? How was that possible? Unless... Peerless divine power! The fear in the eyes of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley turned into shock as he shrieked. Apart from him, Heavenly Wolf's voice sounded from the silver mask at almost the same time, and said the same words. Back in Tianhuang mainland, when the martial Tao prime body attacked God's mainland, he released the heaven and earth furnace once. However, because they were in the lower worlds at that time, its full power was far from released. This bloodline phenomenon was not perfected either. But now that the martial Tao prime body channeled it with all his might without holding back, the terrifying might released shocked Heavenly Wolf. The heaven and earth furnace was a bloodline phenomenon. However, in Heavenly Wolf's judgment, this bloodline phenomenon was already comparable to a peerless divine power. Although Heavenly Wolf submitted to the martial Tao prime body, in the depths of his heart, it held some contempt towards its master. It had 2 masters and would naturally compare them. Although the martial Tao prime body was strong, he was still way too inferior compared to its previous master. Furthermore, the martial Tao prime body established the martial Tao. It was almost impossible for him to open up this unprecedented path. Nobody could give him any guidance or help. For other living cultivators, the path ahead was clear. As for the martial Tao prime body, his future was bleak and every step was treacherous. A wrong step could lead to death in a bottomless abyss. However, Heavenly Wolf had not expected that the bloodline phenomenon of the martial Tao prime body could release such power that was comparable to a peerless divine power. More importantly, this was the bloodline phenomenon of the martial Tao prime body himself. It was not imparted by anyone and was completely derived from his own cultivation. Throughout history, there had only been slightly more than 10 peerless divine powers recorded in words, and they were extremely rare. Anyone who comprehended any of them could be invincible among their peers. Although supreme divine powers were strong, they no longer posed much of a threat to perfected immortals and perfected fiends. However, the power of a peerless divine power was enough to kill perfected immortals and perfected fiends. The power of a supreme divine power released by a heaven immortal was definitely not a threat to the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley. As for the heaven and earth furnace, it was already melting his true essence. Only the power of a peerless divine power could reach that level. Impossible! Absolutely impossible! The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley widened his eyes and shouted in all directions. You're only at the heaven immortal realm. How can you comprehend a peerless divine power? This was completely beyond his understanding. Not many perfected immortals and perfected fiends throughout history could comprehend peerless divine powers, let alone heaven immortals. A peerless divine power was a killing tool against the perfected one realm. Ah! The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley roared hysterically as though he had gone mad, but there was no response. There were only raging flames around him. The temperature of the heaven and earth furnace was still rising. The pitch-black true essence around him evaporated continuously. When it dried up, his flesh could not defend against the power of the heaven and earth furnace either. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley had just entered the Perfected One realm, and his cultivation realm had yet to stabilize completely. Earlier on, the Tao fruit showed signs of collapsing after a single glance from the ghost mask. Now, under the refinement of the heaven and earth furnace, his Tao fruit finally could not hold on any longer and cracks appeared. It was on the brink of collapse. Heaven and earth will be the furnace and creation will be the process. Yin and Yang will be charcoal and all living beings will be bronze. The voice of the martial Tao prime body sounded slowly from the heaven and earth furnace. Against that voice, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley's Tao heart collapsed, and he could no longer hold on. His body burned with raging flames, and in the blink of an eye, it was blazing. Before long, the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was reduced to ashes. Chapter 2162-2162 Black and Complete Diagram 2162 Black and Complete Diagram. Many cultivators were gathered outside the Scarlet Dark Valley as they looked at the gigantic furnace in the distance with shocked expressions. By the looks of it, even the Valley Master is doomed. That purple-robed man from the lower worlds is way too terrifying. Even though the Valley Master has already become a perfected fiend, he was still killed mercilessly. I reckon that this person might be the reincarnation of a perfected immortal or perfected fiend. Most of the cultivators in the valley had long dispersed, and the remaining people still had a sliver of hope, waiting for the final outcome. If the Valley Master dies, where can we go from now on? The Palace Lord of Peerless Palace, Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion, Sect Master of Windfire Sect, and the others are most likely dead as well. These sects and factions might not be able to hold out in the future. I wonder if that purple-robed man will establish any faction. If he does so, submitting to him will be a way out for us. In the hearts of those cultivators, there was no loyalty or sense of belonging. They would submit to whoever was stronger. It was the same everywhere in the Fiend domain. Unlike the Nine Firmament Immortal domain where the immortal emperors reigned supreme and many immortal kings ruled over a territory in an orderly manner, in the Fiend domain, there were frequent wars and all sorts of killing and fighting were happening at all times. Without the protection of an expert, one might be killed the next moment. As time passed by, the gigantic furnace in the world gradually dissipated and the figure of the martial Tao prime body reappeared, descending slowly. The original hall of Scarlet Dark Valley beneath his feet had already turned into ruins. At the place where the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley died, a black ball the size of a goose egg floated in midair, and was filled with cracks. The crack emitted a faint glow with a thin black fog surrounding it. That was the Tao fruit of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley. The Tao fruit was condensed from the combination of the black, earth and heaven essence. It was the crystallization of a lifetime of Dharmic Tao and was incomparably tough and indestructible. Of course, that was only the saying of the immortal and fiend sections. In the Pure Land of Bliss, Buddhist cultivators referred to them as relics. In Tianhuang mainland, there was a legend that after some accomplished monks died and underwent nirvana, their corpses would rot and their flesh would dry up. However, there would be a crystal the size of a goose egg left behind. Actually, the so-called Tao attainment referred to entering the perfected one realm and becoming an arhat. That was the equivalence of the perfected immortals of the immortal sects and perfected fiends of the fiend sections. The tough crystal left behind was the Tao fruit, also known as the relics of the Buddhist sects. Although the flesh and corpse of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley was refined by the heaven and earth furnace, the Tao fruit was preserved. The martial Tao prime body held the Tao fruit in his palm and sensed it carefully. Not only did that Tao fruit contain rich true essence, it also condensed the Dharmic Tao of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley, and was of some use to him. Of course, this Tao fruit was clearly much inferior to the Tao fruit of Qingyun's clone. Ever since the martial Tao prime body ascended to the Fiend domain, he had overwhelmed many factions and snatched their essence spirit minds to refine. He had also collected many cultivation techniques of the upper world. Most of those cultivation techniques and secret skills were ordinary, and were not worthy of his attention. However, he was no longer unfamiliar with the Perfected One realm. The Perfected One realm was divided into 4 levels: Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether, and Paradise Void. Convergence had 2 meanings. The first was the convergence of the black, earth, and heaven essences into true essence. Second, it referred to the Tao and Dharmic arts of the past that were condensed and synthesized to become the final Tao fruit. The Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley had just entered the Perfected One realm, and he could only be considered as a convergence perfected fiend. As for Qingyun's clone that died in Dai Yu's hands, he was at least Hollow Nether, and might even be a perfected immortal of the Paradise Void realm. Heavenly Wolf had once told the martial Tao Prime Body that if he wanted to be reborn in the upper world, he had to cultivate to level 3 of the Perfected One realm, the Hollow Nether realm. Hollow Nether, Hollow Nether. The martial Tao Prime Body murmured softly, and a realization flashed through his mind. Nether must be related to the Netherworld. However, what's the meaning of hollow? Suddenly, the expression of the martial Tao Prime Body changed as he looked at a pile of ashes not far away. He frowned slightly with a strange expression. That was the corpse and flesh of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley after he was burned. Under the refinement of the heaven and earth furnace, his storage bag had already turned into ashes and the essence spirit stones within were burned and refined. However, there seemed to be a black paper on the ashes that was as thin as cicada wings lying there quietly. The martial Tao Prime Body walked forward and picked up the black paper to study it. The black paper was extremely ancient, and seemed to be a beast hide of some living being. It was incomplete, and the gap at the edge seemed to have been forcefully torn apart by an external force. It was an incomplete diagram. Even the divine weapons and Dharmic treasures in the storage bag of the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley were refined into scorching lava by the heaven and earth furnace. However, the incomplete diagram was preserved intact. Furthermore, the person who could tear this diagram back then was definitely far stronger than the martial Tao Prime Body. There seemed to be a figure drawn on the incomplete diagram. However, the diagram was incomplete, and only half of the figure's body could be seen. The figure seemed to be wearing pitch-black armor, and the weapon in his hands was incomplete. It was unknown if it was an iron rod or spear. The martial Tao Prime Body merely glanced at the incomplete diagram, and suddenly felt his mind and gaze being pulled by an invisible force, sinking into it. All the strokes on the incomplete diagram seemed to have fallen off, forming mysterious runes that surged into the mind of the martial Tao Prime Body. The next moment, killing and destructive emotions surged in the depths of the martial Tao Prime Body's heart. He stood on the spot motionlessly as the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi surged towards his body continuously. Even without activating his essence spirit, he was like a gigantic vortex, absorbing heaven and earth essence chi wildly. Strange black patterns appeared on the face and skin of the martial Tao Prime Body in a mysterious manner. Black fiend chi began to swirl around his body as well. His eyes were pitch black and filled with a demonic glint. He seemed to have fallen into a berserk and uncontrollable state with a murderous aura. The martial Tao Prime Body wore a silver mask and his back was facing the Azura. The latter could not see the abnormality on his face either. However, the Azura could still sense that something was amiss with the state of the martial Tao Prime Body. Just as he was about to speak, the martial Tao Prime Body shuddered and suddenly closed his eyes. The fiend chi around him gradually dissipated. The black glint in his eyes faded as well. However, the mysterious black patterns on his body did not disappear. They were like imprints etched on his skin and created a strong suction to the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi. The martial Tao Prime Body's heart skipped a beat and his blood chi surged. The flames of the martial Tao furnace burned and washed away the black patterns on his body before long. Interesting. The martial Tao Prime Body smirked and murmured. Gripping his palm, he closed the incomplete diagram and put it away in his storage bag without taking another look. Chapter 2163 End of the Road. 2163 End of the Road. Before the martial Tao Prime Body came to the Scarlet Dark Valley, he had heard that the Valley Master of the Scarlet Dark Valley had once entered an ancient ruin and obtained a treasure. That was the reason why his cultivation increased exponentially, and he rose rapidly in this territory. If he was not wrong, the so-called treasure should be this black incomplete diagram. If one were to stare at the incomplete diagram, it would be extremely easy for them to be immersed in it and be affected by the violent, murderous and destructive emotions within. The martial Tao Prime body was caught off guard and almost fell into it. Once one's mind was affected, the incomplete diagram would release a strange power that would cause mysterious pitch-black demonic patterns to appear on the viewer's body. The pitch-black dermic patterns possessed an extremely strong and berserk absorption power towards heaven and earth essence chi. With the augmentation of that power, his cultivation speed would definitely increase exponentially. That was also the reason why the Valley Master of Scarlet Dark Valley's cultivation could advance in a short period of time. In fact, he eventually advanced to the perfected One realm and condensed the Tao fruit to become a perfected Fiend. Although the black incomplete diagram depicted a figure, it was almost certain that it recorded a top-tier Fiend technique. That Fiend technique could even affect the martial Tao Prime body. Sensing something unusual, the martial Tao Prime body broke free before long. Even the remaining pitch-black dermic patterns on his body were washed away by his blood chi. The martial Tao Prime body used the martial Tao furnace to nurture 100 sutras and smelt cultivation techniques. However, he would not truly be restricted by those sutras. His foundation was the martial Tao. The purpose of smelting the cultivation techniques was to peer into the secrets of heaven and earth from them, and create his own Tao and dermic arts. The martial Tao Prime body would browse through many sutras, cultivation techniques, and even attempt to cultivate them. However, he would not fall into them or leave any marks on his body. If he wanted to create a dermic formulation that was different from the immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Taoists, he could only succeed if he broke free from the influence of the three dermic Taoists. The current combat strength of the martial Tao Prime body was far stronger than the Green Lotus True body. However, his cultivation realm had already reached a bottleneck, and it was difficult for him to break through. If he wanted to advance further, he had to create the next dermic Tao. In front of him was darkness, a bottomless abyss. He had to create his Tao before he could continue forward. However, it was different for the Green Lotus True body. Although the cultivation realm of the Green Lotus True body could not compare to the martial Tao Prime body, his future was clear. After the Heaven Immortal realm was the Perfected One realm. After the Perfected One realm was the Grotto Heaven realm. After the Grotto Heaven realm was the Emperor realm. The path of cultivation was like a towering mountain. There were already ancestors who had paved stone steps in front of the Green Lotus True body with blood and corpses. All he had to do was ascend. As for the martial Tao Prime body, he had to rely on his own strength to carve out stone steps on the mountain peak before ascending. In comparison, it was easier for the Green Lotus True body to reach the peak. Do you recognize this incomplete diagram? The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao Prime body moved and he asked with a voice transmission. Heavenly Wolf came from the upper world and knew the hell suppression tripod as well as many ancient secrets. He had the highest chance of knowing the origin of the incomplete diagram. No, Heavenly Wolf said. However, this incomplete diagram is quite old and might even precede me. There should be an extremely powerful Fiend technique recorded on it. This was the same as what the martial Tao Prime body had judged. The Fiend technique on the black incomplete diagram could absorb heaven and earth essence chi wildly, and was extremely domineering. However, no matter what, it could not compare to the terror of the martial Tao furnace. The martial Tao furnace could refine an entire essence spirit mind directly. Of course, the black incomplete diagram was still of great help to him. If the Prime body wanted to take another step forward in the martial Tao, he would have to read a large number of cultivation techniques and sutras. The higher the quality, and the stronger the cultivation technique, the greater the benefits it would provide for him after being smelted by the martial Tao furnace. Back in the Tao inheritance ground, Su Zimo obtained many inheritances and accumulated a large amount of experience. After 5,000 years of consolidation, he finally established the Tao for all living beings and imparted martial arts to the world. Cough, cough! Right then, a heavy cough sounded from the side, interrupting the thoughts of the martial Tao prime body. Although Yan Beichen broke free, he had suffered too much torture over the years and could only hold out till now because of the hatred in his heart. Now that he was out of danger, his heart relaxed and his hatred faded slightly. The injuries in his body exploded completely. Yan Beichen's face was pale as he coughed out a few mouthfuls of black blood. The life force in his body was extremely weak, and he was at the end of his road. In Yan Beichen's consciousness, his essence spirit was filled with cracks and dimmed. If this continued, Yan Beichen would die before long. The martial Tao prime body looked at Yan Beichen and frowned. Although he was strong in combat and had extraordinary methods, he was helpless against Yan Beichen's injuries. There had never been any elixirs in his storage bag as he did not need them. Furthermore, no elixirs could save Yan Beichen right now. Even the 7 glow immortal ginseng could only heal the Azura's body but not his essence spirit. Be it in the upper or lower worlds, elixirs that could heal the essence spirit were way too rare. However, Yan Beichen's injuries were way too serious. Brother Yan! The martial Tao prime body called softly with a heavy heart. Fu! As though he could already predict his outcome, Yan Beichen faked a relaxed smile. Zimo, you don't have to worry. It's fine if I die. I can head down to the Netherworld and pay Tianhuang a visit. The martial Tao prime body sighed internally. Tianhuang's death was a huge blow to Yan Beichen. All these years, if not for the fact that he was thinking about searching for that illusory Netherworld and the mysterious 6 paths of reincarnation, he would not have been able to ascend and would have long committed suicide in Tianhuang mainland. However, the martial Tao prime body learned from Heavenly Wolf that if one did not cultivate to the hollow nether realm, even if they died and entered the Netherworld, Yan Beichen would not be able to find Tianhuang. If their cultivation realms were not high enough and they entered the 6 paths of reincarnation, their memories of their previous lives would definitely be erased, and they would be reborn. The fate between the two of them had already been severed. Whether or not Yan Beichen lived or died, nothing could change. Ooh, ooh! Right then, the cry of a little beast could be heard not far away. Right on the heels of that, a white figure darted over at an extremely fast speed. Arriving at Yan Beichen's feet, it spun continuously and whimpered. It was a white sable that was as long as an arm. Its fur was snow-white without any impurities. The white sable's pitch-black eyes shone with tears of worry. It's you! Yan Beichen looked at the white sable and wanted to bend down to caress its cheek. However, his injuries were aggravated as he knelt on the ground and could not help but laugh bitterly. I encountered this white sable after ascending. It's quite sentient. Yan Beichen murmured softly. To think that you haven't left after I fell into trouble. After a brief pause, Yan Beichen said, Unfortunately, I'm going to leave first this time round. Ooh. Ooh. The white sable whined softly as though it was crying, causing one's heart to ache. Master, I might have a way to save him. Right then, Heavenly Wolf's voice sounded in the consciousness of the martial Tao prime body from the silver mask. Chapter 2164 Origin of Heavenly Wolf. 2164 Origin of Heavenly Wolf. Speak, the martial Tao prime body said. Heavenly Wolf said, I know a cultivation technique that's very suitable for this person to cultivate. Oh? The martial Tao prime body narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, Brother Yan's injuries can recover after cultivating this cultivation technique? Even his essence spirit injuries? He had smelted countless cultivation techniques and divine powers, but he had never heard of such a mystical cultivation technique. Although the black and complete diagram earlier on had a mysterious origin, and the Fiend technique on it was extremely powerful, it could not save Yan Beichen. Heavenly Wolf said, If he cultivates this cultivation technique, the Azura's injuries will definitely recover. However, his essence spirit's injuries can't be healed. This cultivation technique can only suppress the injuries on his essence spirit temporarily and ensure his survival. You mean to say that after cultivating this cultivation technique, there's still a chance for Brother Yan's essence spirit injuries to exacerbate? The martial Tao Prime Body asked with a frown. Heavenly Wolf said, Indeed, the hidden ailment of the essence spirit will still exist. However, at the very least, we can preserve his life for now and make plans in the future. At that point, Heavenly Wolf paused slightly. The martial Tao Prime Body's heart skipped a beat. Sensing that abnormality, he said coldly, You did not finish. Heavenly Wolf hesitated for a moment and stammered. This cultivation technique is incomplete. I only know half of it. The tone of the martial Tao Prime Body changed and his eyes revealed a sinister glint. Sensing the intentions of the martial Tao Prime Body, Heavenly Wolf's heart skipped a beat, afraid that the latter would summon 4 more balls of flames to torture him. Heavenly Wolf explained hurriedly, I truly only know half of it. Back then, my master only imparted half of it to me. The martial Tao Prime Body remained silent. The more silent he was, the more flustered Heavenly Wolf became. He continued, This is the Fiend technique, the Fiend Obsession Buddha Karmic Sutra, created by my master back then. It's divided into 2 sections and is comparable to the Taboo Mystic Classics. It's extremely powerful, but the half I know is only the Fiend Obsession section. The Asura's heart is filled with torrential hatred, and hatred is a type of obsession. Even if his body is at the end of its road, he can still cultivate the Fiend Obsession section. The stronger the obsession in one's heart, the stronger the power of this Fiend technique. The martial Tao Prime Body was in deep thought. Back in Tianhuang mainland, Demonist Ji once told him that obsession made one a fiend. The foundation of this Fiend technique was obsession. The Hatred Sutra was strong, and its foundation was hatred. Hatred was merely a form of obsession. From that perspective, the Fiend Obsession section was indeed much more brilliant than the Hatred Sutra. As Heavenly Wolf had said, Yen Beichen had the Hatred Sutra as his foundation, and his heart was filled with hatred. The Fiend Obsession section was the most suitable and easiest for him to cultivate. However, even after cultivating the Fiend Obsession section, Yen Beichen's essence spirit still had a fatal hidden ailment that could explode in the future. Who was your master back then? Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime Body asked. Heavenly Wolf only submitted to the martial Tao Prime Body when the latter was about to ascend. Therefore, although the martial Tao Prime Body imprisoned him for thousands of years, the two of them had not interacted much. At the mention of his master back then, Heavenly Wolf was silent for a long time before saying slowly, My master back then was the greatest emperor in the heavenly world in history, Bo Sun. He was indeed an emperor. The martial Tao Prime Body had previously speculated about that. Emperor Bo Sun's talent was shocking, and he's well versed in the dharmic formulations of the Buddhist and Fiend Das. He created the Fiend Obsession Buddha Karmic Sutra and cultivated the 3 corpses technique, forming 3 clones. Buddha body, 7 emotions body, and 6 desires body. All of them were at the Grotto Heaven realm, and their combat strength was heaven-defying. He refined one of the clones that controlled the 6 desires and forged it into an emperor weapon, the Ji-Du Saber. It contains the power of the 6 desires, and only negative karma can incinerate the 6 desires and wield the Ji-Du Saber. He refined another clone that controlled the 7 emotions and created another emperor weapon, the Mara Mask. It contains the power of the 7 emotions, and only obsession can sever them. When he heard that, the martial Tao Prime Body's heart skipped a beat, as though he thought of something but did not say anything. At the mention of Emperor Bo Sun, Heavenly Wolf's tone carried a deep pride as he continued. Emperor Bo Sun severed his 7 emotions and 6 desires and refined them into 2 emperor weapons. His combat strength increased exponentially, and he dominated the Fiend domain unparalleled. Before long, he unified the Fiend domain and became the #1 Fiend Emperor of the Fiend domain. Thereafter, Emperor Bo Sun's 3rd clone, the Buddha body, entered the Emperor realm. His main body fused with the Buddha body, and he was an unprecedented fusion of Fiend and Buddha. Not only was he the Fiend Emperor of the Fiend domain, he was also the Buddha Emperor of the Pure Land of Bliss. He was only a half step away from becoming a great emperor, Heavenly Wolf did not conceal his voice. At the side, Yen Beichen and the White Sable were shocked. The martial Dao Prime Body nodded as well. The two dharmic Daos of Buddha and Fiend were completely different. The fact that both his Fiend and Buddha bodies could advance to the Emperor realm was beyond his imagination and was enough to shock history. The Fiend and Buddha bodies could even fuse as one. Talent, fortune, boldness, opportunity, and determination were all required. Fiends were Buddhas and Buddhas were Fiends. After unifying the Fiend domain, Emperor Bo-Sun conquered the Pure Land of Bliss and wanted to unify the Fiend domain and Pure Land of Bliss. In the end, he even unified the entire heavenly world and became the master of it. Suddenly, Heavenly Wolf paused. After a moment of silence, he said dejectedly, "Unfortunately, he still failed in the end and was buried in the Pure Land of Bliss. The Emperor weapon refined by Emperor Bo-Sun, the Mara mask, is this silver mask on my face, right?" Suddenly, the martial Dao Prime Body asked. "Yes." Heavenly Wolf laughed bitterly. "I'm just a puny weapon spirit in the Mara mask. I was lucky to survive and was severely injured, landing in the lower worlds." "You're not a mere weapon spirit," the martial Dao Prime Body said indifferently. "You were once the Seven Emotions clone of Emperor Bo-Sun. The Seven Emotions clone was originally a Grotto Heaven King. The reason why Emperor Bo-Sun refined the Seven Emotions clone and created the Mara mask to become an Emperor weapon was actually to help you advance to the Emperor realm in another form." Heavenly Wolf was silent and did not refute. He hid this matter and did not say it explicitly. To think that it would be seen through by the martial Dao Prime Body. "In my previous life, I was indeed the Seven Emotions clone," Heavenly Wolf said frankly. "However, you're wrong about something else. Back then, I was severely injured and died with the Six Desires clone because of a huge battle. That was the reason why Emperor Bo-Sun refined my body into the Mara mask. My shattered essence spirit was refined into the weapon spirit of this Emperor weapon, allowing me to be reborn. Although the Seven Emotions clone and Emperor Bo-Sun came from the same origin, they were completely different. Bo-Sun had a Buddhist and fiendish nature, severing all emotions and desires. Be it the Seven Emotions or Six Desires clones, their thoughts were completely different from Bo-Sun's. For example, the Green Lotus True Body and the Martial Dao Prime Body had the same thoughts. Both true bodies were Su Zimo and Desolate Martial as one. Later on, the Seven Emotions clone was refined into the Mara mask and the Dead Essence spirit was reborn in the form of a weapon spirit, the current Heavenly Wolf. After his rebirth, Heavenly Wolf was given a completely new life and could no longer be considered as the Seven Emotions clone. That was the reason why he addressed Emperor Bo-Sun as his master. Chapter 2165 Path to the Netherworld. 2165 Path to the Netherworld. The martial Dao Prime Body was well versed in Buddhism and was no stranger to the term Bo-Sun. That name had been mentioned many times in the ancient books of the Buddhist monasteries. Ancient Fiend Bo-Sun was the oldest, strongest, and most terrifying fiend in the Buddhist monasteries. He existed in the same generation as the Buddha. Legend has it that when the Buddha was born, Bo-Sun descended as well, living together with Buddha. It was said that back when Buddha was comprehending the Tao beneath the Bodhi tree, Bo-Sun led 8 billion fiend cultivators to obstruct Buddha's cultivation and a war between Buddhas and fiends broke out. This was an extremely ancient war that happened countless eras ago even in the upper world. Perhaps it was when the upper world first opened up and all living beings reproduced and lived savagely. No one knew about the situation of this battle. However, the outcome was that Buddha attained the Tao and Bo-Sun suffered a crushing defeat. Previously, he was still confused when he saw that record in Tianhuang mainland. Now that he thought about it, there was a high chance that the Buddhist and Fiend battle back then was a fight between two peak emperors. Eventually, Buddha became a great emperor and Bo-Sun was defeated. If Buddha was the supreme ancient Buddha of the Buddhist monasteries, Bo-Sun was the utmost of the oldest fiends. The fact that Heavenly Wolf's master dared to call himself Bo-Sun and share the same name as the oldest Fiend Emperor was proof of how ambitious and bold he was. Unfortunately, this emperor who was only a half step away from becoming a great emperor failed and died in the pure land of bliss. The martial Tao Prime Body pondered in silence, and recalled what Heavenly Wolf had said. Heavenly Wolf was the weapon spirit of the Mara Mask. As for the Mara Mask, it was created by the 7 emotions clone. Only obsession could sever the 7 emotions. That was the reason why Heavenly Wolf understood the Fiend obsession section created by Emperor Bo Sun. It was all for the sake of controlling the Mara Mask. Everything made sense now. Back in Tianhuang mainland, the martial Tao Prime Body had already sensed that Heavenly Wolf had a powerful background. The silver mask was one of the reasons. More importantly, Heavenly Wolf was extremely stubborn and only submitted after being burned and imprisoned by his 4 flames for thousands of years. Now that he thought about it, it was understandable. In his previous life, he was the 7 emotions clone of Emperor Bo Sun, a Fiend King. Even though he was reborn as a weapon spirit later on, he was also an Emperor weapon. It was only natural that he had pride and was unwilling to submit to others. Compared to his previous master, the martial Tao Prime Body was indeed way too different. Brother Yen, you heard it too. Since things have come to this, you can only survive after cultivating the Fiend Obsession section. When the martial Tao Prime Body knew the origin of the Fiend Obsession section, he was relieved and persuaded Yen Beichen. Yen Beichen remained silent. The aura of death shrouded him, and he was despondent. In the depths of his heart, he no longer had any desire to survive. The martial Tao Prime Body sighed internally and said in a deep voice, Heavenly Wolf told me that there's indeed a Netherworld in the upper world. You're not the only one. I want to head to the Netherworld to take a look as well and settle one of my worries. He was still thinking about Jiaoxue. For real? Yen Beichen's eyes lit up, and he seemed to have gained some strength. He struggled to stand up and asked, If there's truly a Netherworld in the upper world, where is it? How can I head to it? Fufu. In the Mara Mask, Heavenly Wolf suddenly scoffed. The martial Tao Prime Body knew that there was definitely something going on, and hurriedly sent a message with his spirit consciousness to shut Heavenly Wolf up. Pausing for a moment, he attempted to explain. I don't know either. No matter what, as long as we're alive, there will always be a chance. That's right, true. Yen Beichen nodded with a glint in his eyes as he said to himself. Not everyone can enter a place like the Netherworld. There must be a requirement for one's cultivation realm. I want to cultivate. If a Fiend King won't cut it, I'll cultivate to become a Fiend Emperor. If a Fiend Emperor won't cut it, I'll cultivate to become a great Emperor. One day, I'll be able to enter the Netherworld and look for Tianhuang. At that thought, Yen Beichen looked at the martial Tao Prime Body. I'll learn. All right. The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao Prime Body moved and he asked Heavenly Wolf to impart the Fiend Obsession section to Yen Beichen. Yen Beichen had the Hatred Sutra as a foundation and his hatred was strong. When he cultivated the Fiend Obsession section, it was as though he had divine help and he entered a state of epiphany. In the ruins he sat on the ground. The hatred and obsession in his body transformed into wisps of black chi that circled around his body. The injuries on his body were healing at a visible speed. Even the cracks on his essence spirit were shrouded by the hair-like black chi, as though they were mending. The white sable seemed to have realized that Yen Beichen would not die. At this critical juncture of his cultivation, it became extremely quiet and sprawled beside Yen Beichen obediently. The martial Tao Prime Body retreated a few steps and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. What were you laughing about earlier on? I was laughing at his ignorance. Heavenly Wolf's tone was mocking. Throughout history, I've never heard of anyone who could find where the Netherworld was or enter it while they are alive. The martial Tao Prime Body frowned slightly. There's only a single way to enter the Netherworld. Heavenly Wolf paused for a moment and chuckled. Death. If he's dead, he'll naturally enter the Netherworld. A living person can forget about entering the Netherworld. It has nothing to do with his cultivation realm. How certain are you? The martial Tao Prime Body asked. Heavenly Wolf said. Aren't the great emperors of history strong? Don't they have high cultivation realms? I've lived for so long, but I've never heard of any great emperor who entered the Netherworld when they were alive. The martial Tao Prime body was silent. According to Heavenly Wolf, even if the Netherworld existed, Yan Beiqin and Qin Pianran would not be able to reunite. Qin Pianran had long reincarnated, and the two of them were separated by yin and yang. Naturally, he would not say those words to Yan Beiqin. After all, this was Yan Beiqin's hope to survive. The martial Tao Prime body did not want that bit of hope to be destroyed. Yan Beiqin was temporarily out of danger. The martial Tao Prime body began to think about his future as well. For him, the most important thing right now was not to continue plundering resources, but to create the next martial Tao dermic formulation. He needed to enter seclusion to comprehend the Tao. It was an extremely long process. It could take thousands, 100,000s, several 100,000s of years, or even eternity. However, no matter what, the martial Tao Prime body could only continue. From the moment he stepped on this path, it was destined that he would never be able to turn back. He could only move forward alone. When he saw Yan Beiqin's encounter, the mental state of the martial Tao Prime body underwent many changes. Initially, he had no intention of establishing any faction. However, at that moment, he had the thought of establishing a faction in the Fiend domain. That way, he would have a greater chance of finding his old friends from Tianhuang mainland who had ascended and obtain more information about them. Furthermore, the stronger the faction and the more manpower they had, the more cultivation techniques and secret skills they could collect. This was extremely important for him to create the next martial Tao dermic formulation. But now, he had to enter seclusion to comprehend the Tao and could not do it himself. The matter of establishing a faction and expanding one's territory had to be handed over to someone trustworthy and powerful who could do whatever he wanted in the Fiend domain. Naturally, Yan Beiqin was someone who could be completely trusted. After cultivating the Fiend obsession section, his cultivation realm and combat strength would increase rapidly as well. He was completely qualified to become a great general of the battlefield and conquer all bloody battles. However, it was not suitable for him to lead a faction. Yan Beiqin was entangled with hatred and obsession, and could not make a rational judgment most of the time. This person will be. The martial Tao Prime body's heart skipped a beat, and he made a decision. Chapter 2166 Rebirth of Heavenly Wolf. 2166 Rebirth of Heavenly Wolf. Heavenly Wolf, have you ever thought of a true rebirth? Suddenly, the martial Tao Prime body asked. Heavenly Wolf was slightly stunned as he probed carefully. Master, you mean to say? The martial Tao Prime body said. I'll let you be reborn in this generation and possess an independent life and body. This? For a moment, Heavenly Wolf could not believe it. Although he was reborn by Emperor Bo-sun in another way, he was only a weapon spirit. He did not have a body of his own. His fate was to protect the Mara mask. Even if he had such thoughts, Emperor Bo-sun would not allow it. The Mara mask was an emperor weapon. If he became an independent living being, it would be equivalent to the emperor weapon losing its weapon spirit. Its power would be greatly reduced. Heavenly Wolf did not agree immediately. He was a little worried that this was just a test from the martial Tao Prime body. Heavenly Wolf was silent for a moment before reminding. Without a weapon spirit, the Mara mask might never be able to recover to the level of an emperor weapon in the future. I don't care. The martial Tao Prime body said indifferently. If I can't advance to the emperor realm, the Mara mask is useless to me. If I advance to the emperor realm, it's just an emperor weapon. It's dispensable. The foundation of the martial Tao was the body. If the prime body could advance to the emperor realm, his body would be the strongest emperor weapon. To him, the greater help of the Mara mask was to hide his identity. At that point, Heavenly Wolf's heart burned. If he could break free from the Mara mask and possess flesh and blood to exist independently, that would be the dream he had been pursuing. Back when he fell to the lower worlds, he had always been by Tao Lord Blood Fiend's side. It was not that he did not want to occupy Dao Lord Blood Fiend's body. It was because his strength was something that even Dao Lord Blood Fiend could not withstand. If he were to assimilate Dao Lord Blood Fiend, the latter's body would collapse and even trigger the laws of the lower worlds. Therefore, Heavenly Wolf wanted to wait for Dao Lord Blood Fiend to ascend before assimilating him or looking for another suitable body. However, later on, Su Zimo appeared out of nowhere and imparted his Dao to the world, imparting martial arts to all living beings. He even condensed a variant like the martial Dao Prime body and imprisoned him completely. Heavenly Wolf was indignant and refused to submit. Apart from the pride in the depths of his heart, he also wanted to escape one day and possess a body to be reborn. Later on, the martial Dao Prime body deceived the world and his combat strength rose continuously in the lower worlds. His potential was decent, and there was a chance he could accomplish something in the future. On second thought that his former master was already dead, Heavenly Wolf finally chose to submit. And now, such an opportunity was right in front of him. "Are you really willing to let me be reborn?" Heavenly Wolf asked again in disbelief. "That's right," the martial Dao Prime body said. "Since your name is Heavenly Wolf, there's a body suitable for you here." As he said that, the martial Dao Prime body waved his robes and created a huge pit in the ruins not far away. A gigantic wolf demon with short silver fur laid within. The moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf. This was a demon beast brought by the Pavilion Lord of Immortal Slaying Pavilion, and it was at the Grade 9 Black Immortal Realm. In the chaotic battle earlier on, its essence spirit was shattered by the roar of the martial Dao Prime body. Although the wolf demon's body was filled with blood scars, at the very least, its body was intact. The Heavenly Wolf race was the king of the wolf race to begin with. The moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf lineage was the strongest lineage of the Heavenly Wolf race. Heavenly Wolf was indeed tempted. If this was before he was imprisoned and suppressed by the martial Dao Prime body, he would naturally not be interested in this body. But now, if he entered the consciousness of the moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf, he would be able to reincarnate and obtain a true rebirth. Given his methods, it was not difficult for him to change the bloodline of the moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf and make it stronger. Heavenly Wolf did not agree immediately. At that moment, he was extremely cautious. "What do you require of me, Master?" Heavenly Wolf asked humbly and carefully. He did not believe that the martial Dao Prime body would be so kind as to let him be reborn in such a manner. If he was reborn in this manner, it would be extremely risky for the martial Dao Prime body. That was because he could cultivate after occupying the body of the moon-devouring Heavenly Wolf. As long as his cultivation speed was faster than the martial Dao Prime body and he surpassed the latter by a major cultivation realm, he could attempt to erase the restriction planted on his essence spirit by the latter. That way, he would regain his true freedom. In his previous life, he was the Seven Emotions clone and was once one of the strongest Fiend kings of the Fiend domain. In this life, he was a weapon spirit of an Emperor weapon and knew many cultivation techniques. His cultivation experience was much richer than the martial Dao Prime body. The martial Dao Prime body had not even deduced the next dermic formulation of the martial Dao. Although his cultivation realm will be relatively low after his rebirth, he definitely had a chance to surpass the martial Dao Prime body in the future. Of course, he could not reveal such thoughts. "I need you to do a few things." The martial Dao Prime body went straight to the point. "First, after your rebirth, write down all the cultivation techniques and secret skills you learned in your previous life and this generation, including the Fiend Obsession section and the Three Corpses technique." "That's for sure," Heavenly Wolf agreed without hesitation. It did not matter even if he handed all the cultivation techniques and secret skills to the martial Dao Prime body. Heavenly Wolf knew that the martial Dao Prime body could not cultivate them directly. He merely wanted to use those cultivation techniques and secret skills to deduce the next step of the martial Dao. However, it was not that easy to deduce the martial Dao. Heavenly Wolf sneered internally. In fact, he suspected that there was a high chance that the accomplishments of the martial Dao Prime body would stop here. The martial Dao Prime body said, "Second, After you're reborn, you have to cultivate as soon as possible and raise your combat strength. Consolidate all the black-grade factions in the vicinity and establish a new faction. In the early stages, I'll help you complete this matter. Later on, this faction will be under your control. Heavenly Wolf's eyes shone. Even without the instructions of the martial Dao Prime Body, he would cultivate wildly and raise his cultivation. All these years, the sects and factions in the vicinity of this territory had heard of the name of the martial Dao Prime Body. In this battle, Scarlet Dark Valley was destroyed. If the martial Dao Prime Body appeared and gathered all the black-grade factions, it would definitely be extremely easy. He was once a Fiend King and had long understood how to control and lead a faction. What moved Heavenly Wolf even more was that the martial Dao Prime Body wanted to let him control this faction. Once his combat strength increased, he could expand everywhere and rise rapidly. In fact, he even had a chance to regain his glory as the Seven Emotions Fiend King in his previous life. As though he could read Heavenly Wolf's mind, the martial Dao Prime Body said, "You can fight everywhere and expand your territory. You'll control your own limits. If you provoke any strong foes and you die, even I won't be able to save you. During this period of time, you have to collect as many cultivation techniques and secret skills as possible. You can cultivate as you please, but you have to hand me a copy." Chapter 2167 Tianhuang Sect. 2167 Tianhuang Sect. What will the name of this faction be? Heavenly Wolf asked. Tianhuang Sect. The martial Dao Prime Body pondered for a moment, and said a name. Master, leave Tianhuang Sect to me. Don't worry, just enter seclusion. One day, I'll make it the most terrifying and powerful sect in the Fiend domain. Heavenly Wolf was extremely confident. He was not spouting nonsense. He had the qualifications and confidence. Back then, he was the Seven Emotions Fiend King who ruled over a region and knew best how to expand his territory, annex it, and dominate together. He was once at the peak. Right now, he would merely be making the same journey once more. The larger the territory, the more cultivation resources and the greater the chances of obtaining cultivation techniques and secret skills. The martial Dao Prime Body was not the only one. Heavenly Wolf and Yen Beichen also required a large number of Essence Spirit Stones to raise their cultivation. Apart from cultivation resources, the martial Dao Prime Body had another motive for handing over most of the authority of Tianhuang Sect to Heavenly Wolf to expand its territory. It was for his old friends that ascended from Tianhuang mainland. Apart from Yen Beichen, the martial Dao Prime Body did not know who else among his old friends in Tianhuang mainland had ascended to the Heavenly World or the Fiend domain. However, the larger the territory he ruled, the greater the chance of reuniting with his old friends. The reason why this faction was called Tianhuang Sect was because he wanted to attract old friends from Tianhuang mainland. If any old friends of Tianhuang mainland heard the name of this sect, they might rush over. Of course, the upper world was way too huge. Apart from Yen Beichen, there was also a chance that no one else had ascended here. There's one more thing. The martial Dao Prime Body continued. In Tianhuang Sect, be it living beings of the upper or lower worlds, they must be treated equally. This? Heavenly Wolf hesitated. In his eyes, even living beings of the upper world were ants, let alone living beings of the lower worlds. The martial Dao Prime Body ignored Heavenly Wolf's resistance and continued. Excavating essence spirit mines and farming spirit fields will be classified as sect missions. Once the ascenders of the lower worlds complete the missions, they must obtain sufficient rewards. When Heavenly Wolf saw the resolute attitude of the martial Dao Prime Body, he could only agree. Although that was a little troublesome, it was not impossible to execute. Go on. The spirit consciousness of the martial Dao Prime Body moved and a ball of light flew out from the Mara mask. The ball of light tore through the void and entered the glabella of the moon, devouring Heavenly Wolf. A moment later, the eyes of the wolf opened suddenly, filled with joy, excitement, and agitation. Heavenly Wolf circulated the Fiend Sutra, and the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi surged towards his body wildly, healing his injuries. Before long, Heavenly Wolf could stand up and roar into the skies to vent his emotions. Yan Beichen and Heavenly Wolf continued healing and cultivating. The interweaving of chi for the man and wolf was at the point of breaking through the boundaries and could advance at any moment. The martial Tao Prime Body stood at the side in silence. Actually, Heavenly Wolf's thoughts could not be hidden from him. However, for now, Heavenly Wolf could not break free from his restraints. He could also make use of Heavenly Wolf to expand his faction. Furthermore, as long as his cultivation realm was higher than Heavenly Wolf, the latter would definitely not be able to escape from his control. After Yan Beichen and Heavenly Wolf broke through, the two of them could rule over Tianhuang's sect together. Heavenly Wolf would be the sect master, and Yan Beichen would be the deputy sect master. At that time, he could lay dormant and comprehend the Tao in peace. For the martial Tao Prime Body, the most important thing was to deduce the next dermic formulation. Indeed, the Heaven and Earth Furnace bloodline phenomenon released by the Level 9 Fate Ring realm could smelt and kill a Convergence realm perfected fiend. However, there were 4 levels to the perfected 1 realm: Convergence, Celestial Being, Hollow Nether, and Paradise Void. If the martial Tao Prime Body encountered a Celestial Being or Hollow Nether perfected fiend, he might not be able to win. The power of one's body and bloodline would only increase upon entering the next realm. The power of the Heaven and Earth Furnace would also increase exponentially, and reach the true power of a peerless divine power or even surpass it. Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Heaven and Earth Academy. Outer Sect Mountain Peak, courtyard beside the lake at the bottom of the waterfall. It had been close to 1,000 years since Su Zimo entered seclusion. All these years, Su Zimo had not appeared nor participated in any sect activities or missions. He did not even take part in the outer sect competition held by the Academy a year ago. He had sufficient essence spirit stones in his storage bag, and it was enough for him to cultivate for 3,000 years. During this period of time, Princess Scarlet Rainbow came here to look for Su Zimo more than 10 times but could not see him. The residents did not seem to have changed much in the past 1,000 years. However, for some unknown reason, the flora and elixirs around the courtyard were growing extremely well. Even many of the spirit beasts reared in the outer sect of the Academy came here. This day, the cultivation room in the courtyard opened slowly and a figure strode out. He was young and wore green robes. He had refined features and exuded a scholarly aura with a calm expression. Su Zimo was out of seclusion. Initially, he thought that it was already his limit to break through from a grade 6 Earth Immortal to the peak of a grade 7 Earth Immortal in almost 1,000 years. However, when he inherited the exalted mystic spirit Big Dipper True Sutra, the astral essence chi accumulated in his body was way too immense. Also, the cultivation environment of Heaven and Earth Academy was even better than Su Zimo had imagined. With the help of the Taboo Mystic Classic, the Green Lotus True Body could cultivate here with half the effort. In the past 1,000 years, Su Zimo's cultivation realm had already reached the peak of a grade 8 Earth Immortal. He was only missing an opportunity to break through to become a grade 9 Earth Immortal. The reason why Su Zimo came out of seclusion this time round was because he wanted to look for that opportunity. Secondly, the 10,000-year meet was approaching, and he did not want to miss the battle for the Earth ranking. For him, the Earth ranking might be a perfect opportunity. Thirdly, the martial Tao Prime Body had already ascended to the Fiend domain. The moment Su Zimo came out of seclusion, he communicated with the martial Tao Prime Body and established a connection. The martial Tao Prime Body wanted to deduce the martial Tao. Su Zimo imparted all the cultivation techniques and secret skills that the Green Lotus True Body had cultivated over the years to the martial Tao Prime Body. He did not even hold back the Taboo Mystic Classic, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, that was recorded in the Hell Suppression Tripod. The stronger and rarer the cultivation technique, the more precious the obscurities within and the greater the help it would provide to the martial Tao Prime Body. In the past 1,000 years of seclusion, not only did Su Zimo raise his cultivation rapidly, he also had a deeper understanding of the many secret skills he mastered. Su Zimo looked at the plants that grew wildly around him and frowned slightly. With a single thought, he conjured his sword finger and slashed casually. The surrounding vegetation was cut at the waist in unison. If the plants were too lush, it would attract attention. Fellow Taoist Su, you're finally out of seclusion. A scarlet glow sped over and paused in midair. It looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and shouted happily. Princess Scarlet Rainbow had arrived. Greetings, Princess. Su Zimo nodded slightly and smiled with cupped fists. In the past 1,000 years, Princess Scarlet Rainbow's cultivation realm did not change much, and she was still a Grade 9 Earth Immortal. Wow, you've already cultivated to become a Grade 8 Earth Immortal? Sensing Su Zimo's cultivation realm, Princess Scarlet Rainbow could not help but exclaim with widened eyes. Chapter 2168 Trap. 2168 Trap. In 1,000 years, he cultivated from a Grade 6 Earth Immortal to a Grade 8 Earth Immortal. That cultivation speed was terrifying. Even someone like Princess Scarlet Rainbow, who had almost unlimited cultivation resources, could not do it. For the past 100,000 years, Yunting was the only one in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain who could cultivate at such a terrifying speed. After the shock, Princess Scarlet Rainbow quickly regained her composure. Let's go. We'll head to the Essence Spirit Pavilion first and claim the Essence Spirit Stones you accumulated over the years, Princess Scarlet Rainbow remarked. Even if the Outer Sect disciples of the Academy did not complete any missions, they would receive 1,000 Essence Spirit Stones every year for 1,000 years. If one could advance to the Heaven Essence realm within 1,000 years and join the Inner Sect, they would naturally move on to claim the rewards of the Inner Sect disciples. If they could not break through within 1,000 years, they would have to complete some missions arranged by the Academy if they wanted to obtain Essence Spirit Stones. For the past 1,000 years, Su Zimo had been in seclusion. Every year, his Essence Spirit Stones were stored in the Essence Spirit Pavilion. A rough count amounted to 1,000,000 stones. That was not a small figure. Su Zimo and Princess Scarlet Rainbow flew through the air towards the Essence Spirit Prince's pavilion. Along the way, Princess Scarlet Rainbow smiled. Since you've cultivated to become a Grade 8 Earth Immortal, it no longer matters that you didn't take part in the Outer Sect competition. Why do you say that? Su Zimo asked. Princess Scarlet Rainbow said, There's nothing interesting about the Outer Sect competition. It's just a fight between Outer Sect disciples to prepare for the upcoming 10,000-year meet. For every Outer Sect competition, 20 Outer Sect disciples will be selected to take part in the 10,000-year meet to fight for a spot on the Earth ranking. Although you didn't take part in the Outer Sect competition and are not among the 20 rankings, given your capabilities, the Academy will definitely let you accompany them. 1,000 years ago, at the Immortal Sect selection of Coiling Dragon Mountain Range, Su Zimo, who was only a Grade 6 Earth Immortal, single-handedly wiped out more than 100 execution guards of the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, and became the number 1 of the Immortal Sect selection. The terrifying power and methods displayed by Su Zimo in that battle were still fresh in Princess Scarlet Rainbow's memories. If that was the case when he was a Grade 6 Earth Immortal, which of the Outer Sect disciples could go against Su Zimo now that he was a Grade 8 Earth Immortal? As they chatted, the two of them arrived at the Essence Spirit Pavilion. At the entrance of Essence Spirit Pavilion, Steward Qin of the Outer Sect was patrolling the vicinity. When he caught sight of Su Zimo and Princess Scarlet Rainbow, his expression darkened and a dark look flashed through his eyes. Stop right there! Steward Qin went forward and stopped Su Zimo. Su Zimo had some impression of Steward Qin. Back when they had just joined the Outer Sect and arrived here, it was this Steward Qin who received them. This was a mean and sarcastic person. According to Princess Scarlet Rainbow, Steward Qin was merely an Outer Sect disciple in the past. When he saw that he had no hope of joining the Inner Sect, he converted into an Outer Sect steward. One could even obtain a reward of Essence Spirit Stones for this job. Steward Qin, what can I do for you? Su Zimo asked indifferently. Steward Qin looked askance at Su Zimo. Why are you going to the Essence Spirit Pavilion? To retrieve the Essence Spirit Stones that I've accumulated in the Essence Spirit Pavilion over the years. Su Zimo did not hide his intentions and said straightforwardly. Take it. Steward Qin took out a storage bag and threw it to Su Zimo. Su Zimo opened the storage bag and took a look. He said expressionlessly, The number is wrong. There are only less than 200,000 Essence Spirit Stones in this storage bag. I should have gotten 1,000,000. A million? Steward Qin sneered. Ever since you joined the academy, you haven't even shown yourself, let alone completed any missions. What rights do you have to collect 1,000,000 Essence Spirit Stones? Let me tell you, giving you 200,000 is already a great gift. Bullshit. Princess Scarlet Rainbow could not take it anymore and could not help but say, The sect has a rule that there's no need to complete any missions for Essence Spirit Stones within 1,000 years of joining the academy. Princess, this is none of your business. It's best if you don't interfere. Steward Qin seemed to be wary of Princess Scarlet Rainbow and said. Su Zimo was puzzled. He had never interacted with Steward Qin before and had no feud with the latter. Why would the latter suddenly target him? If he truly had any enemy in the academy, it would be Sword Immortal Yu Hua. However, there was no way Sword Immortal Yu Hua knew that he was the Divine Dragon on the Dragon Abyss Star back then. Even if the two of them met again, Sword Immortal Yu Hua might not remember him. You pocketed my remaining 800,000 Essence Spirit Stones for yourself, right? Su Zimo glared at Steward Qin and suddenly spoke. What did you say? As though he had exploded, Steward Qin raised his pitch and turned to glare at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. The conflict here gradually attracted the attention of many surrounding cultivators and disciples as more and more people gathered. Steward Qin's face flushed red as he pointed at Su Zimo's nose and grit his teeth. Let me tell you, just because you slandered me earlier on, I can make you scram from the outer sect and become a servant of the academy. Su Zimo, as an outer sect disciple, how dare you spout nonsense and slander an outer sect steward? Do you understand the severity of your actions? Right then, a figure stood out from the crowd and hollered righteously. Lu Wenbin. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. 1,000 years ago, he had seen this person in the Immortal Sect selection and even fought him. At that time, Lu Wenbin attacked consecutively, wanting to stop Su Zimo from going forward to greet the 4 immortal sections. However, he failed consecutively and lost face. Could Lu Wenbin be holding a grudge because of that? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he thought of a possibility. What's Lu Wenbin's ranking in the outer sect competition? Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. 20. Why? Princess Scarlet Rainbow replied. When he heard that, Su Zimo sneered internally. Lu Wenbin must be worried that after he came out of seclusion, he would snatch away his spot to take part in the 10,000-year meet. That was the reason why he joined forces with Steward Qin to stage today's scene. Steward Qin, you're not qualified to enforce the law in the outer sect. Su Zimo walked slowly towards Steward Qin with a cold gaze. He exuded a shuddering aura that was suffocating. Hand over my Essence Spirit Stones. He took a step forward and extended his palm. Like an enraged Vajra, he glared at Steward Qin and shouted with a voice like a bell. A glint flashed through the depths of Lu Wenbin's eyes when he saw that. This act of his seemed like it was filled with loopholes. However, he had witnessed Su Zimo's personality and methods during the Immortal Sect selection. In his opinion, Su Zimo could not endure such grievances. Given Su Zimo's decisive nature to kill, he would definitely fight after being targeted as such. Private fights were not allowed in Heaven and Earth Academy. If anyone wanted to fight, they would have to head to the Sword Discourse arena of the Academy. If there were private fights, the lightest outcome would be a drop in the disciple's status, and the worst outcome would be for them to be kicked out of the Academy. As long as Su Zimo attacked, he would win. When he saw that Su Zimo was enraged and was walking step by step into his trap, Lu Wenbin's heart burned with uncontrollable excitement. Chapter 2169 A single slap. 2169 A single slap. Fellow Taoist Su, don't be rash, Princess Scarlet Rainbow reminded hurriedly. Right now, there were more and more cultivators gathered in front of the Essence Spirit Pavilion. If Su Zimo were to injure anyone in front of everyone, he would be punished even if he was in the right initially. As though he had not heard anything, Su Zimo arrived before Steward Qin. His gaze intensified and released a chilling killing intent. He looked prepared, as though he was about to attack the next moment. He was a Grade 8 Earth Immortal and his Essence Spirit was now as strong as a Grade 1 Heaven Immortal. This was a complete mental suppression. In front of Su Zimo, Steward Qin felt a mountain-like pressure. His chest was suffocating and he could not breathe at all. Under such immense pressure, Steward Qin panicked and flustered. When he saw Su Zimo's eyes brighten and his body lean forward, as though he was about to charge forward the next moment, he could not help but recall some information about Su Zimo. Su Zimo was decisive to kill. In the Immortal Sect's election, he dared to kill more than 100 execution guards right in front of Prince Yuan's Hua. This person had no qualms and was fearless. He was a complete lunatic. This is bad. Steward Chen's heart skipped a beat. This person wants to kill me. He wanted to turn and escape but realized that he seemed to be restrained by an invisible force and could not move. Ah! Steward Chen growled and released his blood chi with all his might. He conjured hand seals with both hands and released a greater divine power that struck Su Zimo. It was an instinctive reaction. After Su Zimo attacked, there was no way he could sit still and wait for death. He could only retaliate. In his opinion, as long as he defended against Su Zimo's move, the other cultivators would be able to react and capture the latter. However, the moment he released his greater divine power, he saw a mocking look flash through Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo was still standing on the spot motionlessly, and did not attack him at all. I was tricked! Steward Chen's heart sank. He wanted to stop but it was too late. The two of them were way too close. The moment the greater divine power was released, it had already struck Su Zimo's chest with a dull thud. When he saw that, Lu Wenbin frowned. Initially, everything was going as he had expected. However, at the final moment, Steward Chen attacked Su Zimo first as though he was possessed. With that, Su Zimo had every reason to retaliate. Steward Chen, how dare you attack your fellow sect mate? Princess Scarlet Rainbow stood out right away and hollered. The moment Steward Chen attacked, he knew that something was amiss. Steward Chen looked at the many cultivators around him, and wanted to explain. Right then, Su Zimo smiled gently. Steward Chen, you hit me with a greater divine power. It's only fair for me to slap you back. The moment he said that, Su Zimo suddenly attacked. The moment Steward Chen saw Su Zimo raise his hand, a tremendous force slapped his cheek before he could react. His mind buzzed. It was as though his head was struck by a gigantic stone hammer. The sound of bones cracking could be heard and his cheek hurt. The next moment, he lost consciousness. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo raised his hand and slapped Steward Chen in a seemingly casual manner. Like a kite with a snapped string, Steward Chen's figure flew dozens of feet away gently, and landed in the grass motionlessly. His fate was unknown. What immense strength! Did you guys notice? When Steward Chen's greater divine power struck Su Zimo, he seemed to have felt nothing and his expression was normal. A body of flesh and blood can withstand a greater divine power? How is that possible? Many cultivators whispered. What happened? Not far away, an old man with a dignified expression flew through the air with a powerful aura. Descending from the skies, he arrived before the entrance of the Essence Spirit Pavilion and surveyed his surroundings. Greetings, Elder Tang. Many cultivators cupped their fists when they saw the old man. This was the disciplinary elder of the Outer Sect and was a Grade 1 Heaven Immortal. His status was much higher than Steward Chen, and he truly had the right to enforce the law. Princess Scarlet Rainbow walked forward and pointed to Steward Chen, who was not far away. Elder Ting, I need to clarify. Not only did Steward Qin pocket the Essence Spirit Stones an Outer Sect disciple stored in the Essence Spirit Pavilion, he even attacked in the academy. In the end, he wasn't skilled enough and was taught a lesson instead. Elder Ting frowned slightly and waved his sleeves, circulating his essence chi to pull the unconscious Steward Qin closer. Everyone was secretly speechless when they saw Steward Qin's face. It was filled with blood and half of it was caved in. They looked at Su Zimo with a hint of fear. This person was way too ruthless. This was the result of a single slap. Elder Ting circulated his divine power and healed most of the injuries on Steward Qin's face. He then woke the latter up before tossing the ladder in front of him. You pocketed the Essence Spirit Stones of an Outer Sect disciple and even fought in the academy? Elder Ting glared at Steward Qin and asked in a deep voice. I. When Steward Qin woke up and saw that the disciplinary elder was alarmed, his heart turned cold as he explained hurriedly. Elder Ting, it's not my fault. Lu Wenbin was the one who asked me to make things difficult for this person. Elder Ting swept his gaze across Lu Wenbin, who was in the crowd. Don't spout nonsense. What has this got to do with me? Lu Wenbin's expression darkened and he had no choice but to defend himself. Steward Qin went all out as well. Gritting his teeth, he said, Lu Wenbin, don't pretend to be innocent. Do you dare to swear that this has nothing to do with you? You! Lu Wenbin was speechless, and his face flushed red. At the side, Su Zimo watched the two of them engage in a dogfight and could not be bothered. As long as Elder Ting enforced the law impartially, the two of them would definitely not be able to escape punishment for this matter, and there was no need for him to step in. Elder Ting already knew what was going on when he saw that. Qin Xing, Lu Wenbin, the two of you have broken the academy's rules. You will be demoted and sent to the servants' area for a few years. Elder Ting waved his hand. Immediately, other Outer Sect stewards stood out behind Elder Ting, wanting to leave with Steward Qin and Lu Wenbin. Elder Ting, it's truly not my fault. Lu Wenbin was the one who instigated this. Steward Qin was a little anxious and defended loudly. I fought in private because I was tricked by Su Zimo. I thought that he attacked first, so I resisted. Elder Ting's expression changed as he looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. His gaze shifted to the sect badge on Su Zimo's waist. He only retracted his gaze after seeing the name on it. You! Elder Ting pointed at Su Zimo and said indifferently. You fought with others in the academy without permission. Go and be a servant for a few years as well. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly and his expression darkened. Initially, Elder Ting had no intention of making this decision. It was clear that he had changed his mind at the last minute after knowing Su Zimo's identity. Chapter 2170-2170 Escalated Situation. 2170 Escalated Situation. Su Zimo had not expected that after joining the Heaven and Earth Academy, he would still be targeted even after going into seclusion for 1,000 years. However, he could not figure out where the hostility came from. On what basis? Princess Scarlet Rainbow felt indignant for Su Zimo. Steward Qin and Lu Wenbin were the ones who violated the Academy's rules first. What did Su Zimo do wrong? The Academy's rules forbid disciples from fighting in private. That alone is enough to teach him a lesson by letting him be a servant for a few years. Elder Ting waved his hand and said coldly, Take Su Zimo, Qin Xing and Lu Wenbin down with you. They will train in the servants' area for a few years before they're allowed to return. Just as Princess Scarlet Rainbow was about to speak, Elder Ting glared at her and said, Although you have a noble status, don't forget that this is Heaven and Earth Academy, not the Yin-Yang Immortal Kingdom. If you disrupt the Academy's law enforcement, you'll be punished as well. Princess Scarlet Rainbow frowned and was enraged. She ground her canine teeth and glared at Elder Ting fiercely. As a princess, she was scolded in front of everyone. She had never suffered such grievances before. However, she knew in her heart that the people of the Academy did not care about her status as a princess. If she persisted, Elder Ting would definitely chase her out of the Outer Sect to become a servant as well. If news of this were to spread to the Tianhuang immortal kingdom, she would become the laughing stock of the royal family. Princess Scarlet Rainbow's face alternated between shades of green and white. Although she wanted to speak up for Su Zimo, she had her reservations. Right then, a gentle voice sounded from the side. "Thank you for speaking up, Princess. I'll handle this matter." Princess Scarlet Rainbow glanced sideways and caught sight of Su Zimo's calm and gentle gaze. For some reason, her mind gradually calmed down as well. Su Zimo's words made her feel better. Without saying anything more, she pursed her lips and nodded. Su Zimo turned to look at Elder Tang and said slowly, "Elder Tang, if I attack you now in the academy and you retaliate, will it be considered a private fight and a violation of the academy's rules?" The surrounding cultivators shook their heads when they heard that. This was a direct challenge to the authority of the disciplinary elder. Although everyone knew that Su Zimo was completely innocent in this matter, he had just joined the sect not long ago, and was only an outer sect disciple. Furthermore, many cultivators had heard that Su Zimo came from the lower worlds. Someone of his status was asking for trouble by challenging the disciplinary elder. Fufu. Suddenly, Elder Ting laughed and looked at Su Zimo with disdain and mockery. He said proudly, "Su Zimo, do you know what a disciplinary elder is? If you dare to attack me, it's equivalent to challenging the rules of the academy. I have every reason to kill you on the spot. You won't even get the chance to be a servant. Is that so?" Su Zimo smiled as well and said coldly, "If I attack you, you won't even get a chance to retaliate." Psst! A commotion broke out in the surrounding crowd. "Isn't that person way too arrogant? I don't think he's arrogant. There's something wrong with his head. How can an outer sect disciple who ascended from the lower worlds be qualified to challenge the disciplinary elder? Furthermore, Elder Ting is a heaven immortal. How dare an earth immortal like him act so brazenly? He truly doesn't know what's good for him." Many cultivators looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a dying man. Most of the cultivators in the outer sect had only heard of Su Zimo's name, and this was their first time meeting him. They had no relationship with him at all. Although they knew that Su Zimo was being targeted, none of them pitied him. "Ha ha!" Elder Ting was so angry that he laughed instead and said murderously, "Capture him and kick him out of the academy. I don't even want to dirty my hands by killing you, lowlife. You've already offended the great Jin immortal kingdom. There's no need for me to do anything. If Su Zimo dares to resist, kill him on the spot." Su Zimo had a calm expression and said indifferently, "Elder Tung, I'm afraid you can't make the decision to kick me out of the sect." Naturally, Su Zimo had his own reasons for being so calm. The 10,000-year meet was about to begin and Heaven and Earth Academy valued the ranking of the Earth ranking so much. Unless he had committed a heinous crime, they would definitely not chase him out of the academy at this time. Su Zimo was not worried that this matter would blow up. In fact, he hoped that news of this matter would spread to the inner sect. Initially, Steward Chen and Lu Wenbin were the ones who made things difficult for him. If Elder Ting's unfair enforcement of the law caused a huge ruckus, he could find the source of the hostility and resolve the matter. When Elder Ting saw how calm Su Zimo was, he could not help but sneer. "It's no wonder why a lowlife like you is fearless. So, there is someone backing you. Let me tell you, even if Yang Roxa comes today, he won't be able to protect you. Attack!" Elder Tang hollered. The few stewards behind him charged forward one after another. Just as the battle was about to begin, a tremendous spirit consciousness pressure descended from midair and froze the stewards on the spot. "Elder Tang, what happened to make you so angry?" A voice sounded slowly. The next moment, Yang Roxa flew through the air and descended in front of the Essence Spirit Pavilion. "Greetings, Senior Brother Yang!" Many outer sect disciples and the disciplinary elder bowed. Even Elder Ting's eyes flashed with a hint of panic as he forced a smile. Although he was the disciplinary elder, he was only an outer sect disciplinary elder and could not control Yang Roxa at all. Over the years, Yang Roxa cultivated at lightning speed and his status in the inner sect rose rapidly as well. Yang Ruoxu was even sent to several immortal sect selections to recruit Paragon disciples from all over the place. It was clear how highly they thought of him. Of course, Yang Ruoxu's combat strength was not top tier in the inner sect and could only be ranked in the top 10. Under normal circumstances, he was not qualified to host a major event like the Immortal Sect selection. Many cultivators did not know why Yang Ruoxu was so highly regarded. It was only when Fairy Mo Qing appeared at the Immortal Sect selection 1,000 years ago to protect Yang Ruoxu, and even nearly fought against Zither Immortal Meng Yao, that some people realized what was going on. After the Immortal Sect selection, many rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu spread, and it was difficult to tell if they were true. However, if Yang Ruoxu truly had the backing of painting Immortal Mo Qing, it would make sense why he was highly regarded in the inner sect. The matter of Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Ruoxu did not only spread in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the entire Nine Firmament was shaken and the rumors became more exaggerated. Even in the Academy, many cultivators did not dare to discuss it openly, and had many guesses in private. Although Zither Immortal Meng Yao returned fruitless at the Immortal Sect selection back then, the rumor had indeed spread. She had already achieved her goal. Chapter 2171 Sword Discourse Arena. 2171 Sword Discourse Arena. Yang Ruoxu was still wearing a white robe. His face was defined and his skin was slightly dark. He glared at Elder Ting with a deep gaze and a dignified expression. Su Zimo was relieved when he saw Yang Ruoxu. He had a good impression of this senior brother of the inner sect. There was naturally a hint of familiarity in his heart because Yang Ruoxu was also from the lower worlds. Furthermore, back in the Immortal Sect selection, it was Yang Ruoxu's integrity and persistence that allowed him to break free from Prince Yuan's pursuit and join the academy. Given senior brother Yang's character, he would definitely not stand by idly if he knew the entire situation. This time round, before Su Zimo and Elder Ting could speak, Princess Scarlet Rainbow stood out and recounted the matter in a few words. The truth of the matter was not complicated. Elderton, as an outer sect disciplinary elder, your decision earlier was inappropriate, Yang Ruoxu said. In Heaven and Earth Academy, if the law enforcement is unfair, how are we going to convince the masses and reassure the disciples of the academy? Elder Ting smiled embarrassedly and wanted to argue. However, when he met with Yang Ruoxu's gaze, his aura weakened instantly as he lowered his head and averted the latter's eyes. Yang Ruoxu cultivated the Righteousness Sutra and his eyes were filled with righteousness. He was unyielding and even dared to confront Zither Immortal Meng Yao. Elder Ting's cultivation realm was already inferior to Yang Ruoxu. Coupled with the fact that he was feeling guilty, he did not dare to say anything after being glared at by Yang Ruoxu. This time round, on account that you might have done it in a moment of foolishness, I won't hold it against you. Yang Ruoxu's eyes were bright as he looked at Elder Ting deeply, as though he could see through all his secrets. Otherwise, given your mistake this time round, it's enough to strip you of your position as the disciplinary elder. Why yes. Elder Ting was sweating profusely and his aura from earlier on was gone. He lowered his head obediently. Thank you for your forgiveness, senior brother Yang. I was indeed a little muddle-headed earlier on. Yang Ruoxu, you sure are impressive. Right then, a mocking voice sounded from midair not far away. Immediately after, a figure descended. Many cultivators were shocked when they saw who it was and bowed one after another, shouting, Greetings, senior brother Pang! The intruder wore blue robes and carried a long sword on his back. His black hair was tied simply behind his back and he had sword-like brows. The most striking thing about this person was his hands. His fingers were long and fair, and he was born with a pair of hands that were meant to hold swords. After Su Zimo joined Heaven and Earth Academy, he entered seclusion for 1,000 years and did not have much interaction with the academy, so he naturally did not know this person. Princess Scarlet Rainbow sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. This is an inner sect disciple, Pangyu. He has a powerful background and is a sword cultivator. It's said that his combat strength can be ranked in the top 5 of the inner sect. He might even be stronger than senior brother Yang Roxu. Su Zimo nodded. After Peng Yu arrived, Elder Ting, who was bowing earlier on, was no longer obsequious. He puffed his chest and was invigorated. From the looks of it, there was a high chance that Elder Ting's backing was this inner sect disciple, Peng Yu. However, Su Zimo could not understand why he would have a feud with Peng Yu since he did not know the latter at all. Why was Peng Yu targeting him? Senior brother Peng. When Yang Roxu saw Peng Yu, he cupped his fists expressionlessly. In the cultivation world, most people referred to others as senior brothers or junior brothers by their cultivation realms. If their cultivation realms were the same, it would be measured by how long they had been in the sect. Both of them were grade 9 heaven immortals, but Peng Yu had joined the sect for a longer time than Yang Roxu. Junior brother Yang, you're only an inner sect disciple. Do you think the position of the Academy's disciplinary elder is something you can change casually? Peng Yu glared at Yang Roxu and said coldly. Indeed, I can't change it. Yang Roxu's expression was unchanged. However, if Elder Ting were to enforce the laws unfairly and I report it to the Academy, he won't be able to retain his position, right? It's not up to you whether or not he can retain it. Peng Yu sneered. Junior brother Yang, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. You're from the lower worlds and so is Su Zimo. That's why you're thinking of ways to protect him. This is the Academy and you're not even the number one of the inner sect, Yang Roxu. It's not your place to call the shots in the Academy. Senior brother Peng, you're making things sound too serious. Yang Roxu replied indifferently. Since there's such a huge controversy about this matter, why don't we report it to the Academy and ask the elders to make a decision? When he heard that, Elder Ting panicked. He knew this the best. Su Zimo was completely innocent in this matter. If it was reported to the Academy, he would be the one punished. At that time, as Yang Roxu had said, he might not even be able to retain his position as the disciplinary elder. Peng Yu's expression darkened. He knew in his heart that he would only embarrass himself if this matter was reported to the Academy. Right then, Elder Ting rolled his eyes and suddenly said, Senior brothers, please don't spoil your relationship. The affairs of the outer sect are just small matters. It's nothing much. In my opinion, let's forget about this matter, Elder Ting said with a smile. Pausing for a moment, he changed the topic and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. However, I have a personal feud with Su Zimo. That person boasted shamelessly earlier that I wouldn't even get the chance to retaliate if he fought me. All the cultivators present heard that clearly. I heard it. Immediately, some cultivators in the crowd cheered. Elder Ting had a stern expression as he said in a deep voice, It's fine if you disrespect my position as the disciplinary elder if you think that I had enforced the laws unfairly. However, I won't allow you to provoke and underestimate my many years of cultivation like this. Su Zimo raised his brows slightly and looked at Elder Ting. So, what do you want, Elder Ting? This is a personal feud between us and has nothing to do with the rules of the Academy. I don't need to use my status as the disciplinary elder to suppress you, Elder Ting said righteously. However, you spoke rudely. Let's compete on the sword discourse arena. Shameless! When she heard that, Princess Scarlet Rainbow cursed internally. Many cultivators in the surroundings revealed looks of disdain. Although Elder Ting phrased it nicely, his cultivation realm was that of a grade 1 heaven immortal while Su Zimo was only a grade 8 earth immortal. The two of them were a major cultivation realm apart. Although it was clear that he was bullying the weak, he made it sound upright. Yang Roxu frowned slightly. Elder Ting, the difference in cultivation between the two of you is too great. There's no need for this competition, right? We can do without competing, sure. Elder Ting smiled. If Su Zimo comes over obediently and bow to apologize to me, I can forgive him. If he doesn't apologize, he'll have to take responsibility for everything he said. Elder Ting had sharp eyes and could long tell that given Su Zimo's personality and style of doing things, there was no way he would apologize in public. You have to accept punishment for spouting nonsense. Elder Ting looked at Su Zimo and sneered. This is the Academy and life and death fights are not allowed on the sword discourse arena. Don't worry, I'll spare your life. However, I'll leave you an unforgettable lesson. Chapter 2172 A Slap. 2172 A Slap. That's a good idea. Qingyun nodded slightly with a smile. Well, I'll give you a choice. You can either apologize or head to the Sword Discourse Arena to receive your lesson. Elder Tang's plan was foolproof. Even if Su Zimo apologized in public, he could say that Su Zimo was insincere and continued to make things difficult for him repeatedly. Fellow Taoist Su, it's fine to apologize to him. You won't lose anything either. When Princess Scarlet Rainbow saw Su Zimo standing silently, she thought that he was conflicted and could not make up his mind, so she sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. At that moment, the commotion here attracted almost half of the outer sect disciples of the academy. In the eyes of everyone, although it was ugly and embarrassing to apologize in public, it was much better than being beaten up by a heaven immortal on the Sword Discourse Arena. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo suddenly smiled. Sure, let's head to the Sword Discourse Arena, Su Zimo said with a smile. The surroundings went silent for a moment before a commotion broke out. Is Su Zimo crazy? That person is arrogant and conceited. I can already tell back at the Immortal Sect selection. I reckon he hasn't suffered a setback before. Fufu, he's truly asking for trouble. He thought that he could salvage his dignity by not apologizing. However, he did not know that it would be even more embarrassing if he was beaten up by Elder Tang. Many outer sect disciples shook their heads. Those outer sect disciples had only heard of Su Zimo's name from some news of the Immortal Sect selection and did not have a deep understanding of him. In fact, many people thought that the rumors of the Immortal Sect selection were most likely exaggerated. Yang Roxa frowned slightly as well. He looked at Su Zimo sternly and asked in a deep voice, Are you sure you want to go to the Sword Discourse Arena? According to the rules of the Academy, private fights between disciples of the same sect could only be conducted on the Sword Discourse Arena and no one was allowed to interfere. On the Sword Discourse Arena, divine powers and secret skills could be released as they wished. However, life and death battles were forbidden and essence spirit secret skills were not allowed. A fight between essence spirits was way too dangerous. Even if the victors won, their essence spirits would be severely injured. The Academy did not want any disciples to be injured. Even so, if Elder Tang wanted to teach Su Zimo a lesson, he could beat the latter up severely and shatter his physical body. Earth immortals could regrow severed limbs, but they were not at the level of blood rebirth yet. If his body was shattered to an irreparable state, it would be equivalent to losing his original body, and he would have to look for another body. This was no longer a matter of losing face. Sure, I'll give it a try. Su Zimo shrugged his shoulders slightly, looking relaxed and nonchalant. His reaction naturally attracted the disdain of the outer sect disciples once more. However, Yang Roxa did not show any contempt. With a grim expression, he reminded again. Don't think that you guys are only two cultivation realms apart. You have to understand that the difference between you guys is between an earth immortal and a heaven immortal. Heaven immortal experts can. That's enough. Before Yang Roxa could finish, he was interrupted by the impatient Pang Yu. Junior brother Yang, you're not the one going on the Sword Discourse Arena. Why are you so nervous? Pang Yu sneered. Either apologize or fight on the Sword Discourse Arena. Stop being wishy-washy. Although Yang Roxa did not finish, Su Zimo knew that he was reminding him that heaven immortal experts could release supreme divine powers. That was the greatest means and reliance of heaven immortal experts. However, although Su Zimo was a grade 8 earth immortal, his essence spirit realm had already reached the level of a grade 1 heaven immortal and he could also release supreme divine powers. Yang Roxa did not continue speaking after being interrupted by Pang Yu. However, he was still looking at Su Zimo. Su Zimo nodded slightly and gave Yang Roxa a reassuring look. Yang Roxa felt relieved. He had witnessed Su Zimo's strength and potential personally during the Immortal Sect selection. Back in Coiling Dragon Valley, no one thought highly of this scholarly young man. Even the four of them did not think that this green-robed scholar could survive against the sabers of more than 100 fiendish execution guards. However, it was proven that all of them were wrong. Therefore, Yang Roxu believed in Su Zimo. However, he still did not know how Su Zimo, who was only an earth immortal, was going to deal with the power of a heaven immortal and the supreme divine power of one. "Let's go." With a relaxed expression, Su Zimo seemingly muttered to himself. "An unforgettable lesson, I'm really looking forward to it." "Ha ha!" Elder Ting reared his head in laughter. "Don't worry, your wish will come true soon." Be it in the outer or inner sects, there were many sword discourse arenas. Naturally, the so-called sword discourse was not a simple sword competition, it was a spar between fellow sect mates. Before long, everyone arrived at the sword discourse arena closest to the outer sect's essence spirit pavilion. The commotion here even attracted some inner sect disciples passing by, and the surrounding crowd grew larger. In the academy, every single spar on the sword discourse arena would attract everyone's attention. This time round was the most special. That was because the difference in cultivation between the two people on the sword discourse arena was immense. One was an earth immortal and the other was a heaven immortal. One was an outer sect disciple and the other was an outer sect disciplinary elder. The sword discourse arena was made from a gigantic rock and had sufficient space for the two people in the spar to release their divine powers and secret skills wantonly. "Everyone, how many rounds do you think Elder Tang will take to win?" "That's not for sure. The main thing is to see how many rounds Elder Ting wants to go for. If Elder Ting wants to win quickly and releases his supreme divine power in the first round, Su Zimo will lose. Even a cat will not kill a mouse it's hunting right away. I reckon Elder Ting will spend some time playing with this person on the sword discourse arena." The surrounding cultivators discussed fervently. Su Zimo and Elder Ting had already ascended the sword discourse arena and stood facing one another. "Lad." Elder Ting looked at Su Zimo and could not suppress the excitement in his heart as he smiled. "Actually, I'm doing this for your own good. At least you can survive after I teach you a lesson in the academy. If you behave as arrogantly as you did outside the academy, you would have died a long time ago." Su Zimo ignored Elder Ting. Instead, he looked in the direction of Yang Roxu and Pang Yu and asked loudly, "Can we begin the discourse?" "As long as you're on the sword discourse arena, you can start at any moment." Elder Ting burst into laughter. Before his laughter ended, Su Zimo vanished from his line of sight. "Watch out!" The next moment, Pang Yu's voice exploded in his ears. At that moment, his heart seemed to have stopped beating. Elder Ting did not have time to think about why Su Zimo suddenly disappeared. He channeled his essence spirit with all his might, and conjured hand seals with both hands, wanting to release a supreme divine power. Initially, he wanted to hold back. However, at that moment, he only wanted to survive. Yet, even with Pang Yu's reminder, he lost the initiative. Su Zimo used the true Dragon 9 flashes and crossed 100 feet. As though he had teleported, he descended beside Elder Tang and slapped the latter on the back. Bang! Flesh exploded and blood filled the skies. Chapter 2173 beat you to despair. 2173 beat you to despair. Although Elder Ting was a grade 1 heaven immortal, his body could not compare to the Green Lotus true body. With the grade 10 creation Green Lotus and the Thunder Bones strengthening, it could take on any Earth grade Khanate dermic treasure head-on without using any power of bloodline. Elder Ting's body could not withstand it at all. After Su Zimo closed in with a palm strike, his body was shattered and flesh splattered everywhere. Naturally, Su Zimo's essence spirit could also release supreme divine powers. However, there was no need. He would use the simplest and most direct method to get rid of Elder Ting, and not waste time with him. As he had said initially, Elder Ting would not even have the chance to retaliate if he attacked. Su Zimo's attack was way too sudden. Apart from top heaven immortals such as Yang Ruoxu and Pang Yu who reacted, everyone else present was stunned. It was only when Elder Ting's body was destroyed that the crowd exclaimed, "Heavens, Elder Ting was shattered by a single palm strike! It's too fast. Is it teleportation? It can't be teleportation. There's no divine power aura on the Sword Discourse arena. Furthermore, Su Zimo is only an Earth immortal and can't release teleportation. Elder Ting was careless. His body was shattered before teleportation was even released." The surroundings of the Sword Discourse arena were in an uproar. Yang Roxa glanced sideways and sneered. "Senior Brother Pang, outsiders are not allowed to interfere in the fight on the Sword Discourse arena. Your reminder earlier on was already considered a violation of the rules." Humph! Knowing that he was in the wrong, Pang Yu harumphed coldly and did not refute. He had not expected Su Zimo's attack to be so ferocious that it was like a thunderbolt, not giving his opponent any chance to resist. Even with his reminder, Elder Ting did not have time to escape. Yang Roxa said in a deep voice, "I don't think there's a need to continue this fight. The outcome has been decided." "Not necessarily," Pang Yu said. "Elder Ting was merely careless and lost the initiative. The methods of a Heaven Immortal are not something a mere Earth Immortal like him can match. Heaven Immortals can circulate blood rebirth. As long as their essence spirits are not destroyed, even if their bodies are destroyed, they can reconstruct their bodies and recover their combat strength in the blink of an eye," Yang Roxa said. "If not for the fact life and death battles are not allowed on the Sword Discourse arena, Su Zimo's palm strike would have landed on Elder Ting's head. By now, Elder Ting's essence spirit would be the one that was destroyed instead of a mere body explosion." Actually, as Yang Roxa had said, the outcome of the battle on the Sword Discourse arena was decided. However, Pang Yu was indignant and did not call for a stop. On the Sword Discourse arena, Elder Ting was even more enraged and wanted to use blood rebirth to suppress Su Zimo with all his might to regain his dignity. After shattering Elder Ting's body with a single palm strike, Su Zimo stopped and did not continue chasing. However, he shifted his gaze and saw that Pang Yu had no intention of calling for a stop. On the other side, Elder Ting's essence spirit escaped to a corner of the Sword Discourse arena and was circulating blood rebirth to recover his body. Su Zimo understood that the other party had not given up at all. He smirked coldly. Blood rebirth was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Elder Ting's body was reconstructed. Just as Elder Ting was about to channel his essence spirit, he felt his vision blur, as though something flashed. The next moment, he felt a tremendous sense of danger envelop him, causing his hairs to stand on end. "This is bad!" Elder Ting shouted internally. Immediately after, he felt another sharp pain on his back and his chest exploded. His entire body was shattered by a terrifying power once more. Right in front of everyone, Elder Ting's body that had just been reconstructed was shattered by Su Zimo's palm once more. Elder Ting could not withstand the power of the Green Lotus true body coupled with the Great Chaos Essence palm. The crowd was in an uproar. As the disciplinary elder of the Outer Sect, Elder Ting had a noble status and was even a Grade 1 Heaven Immortal. To think that he would be shattered twice by an Earth Immortal on the Sword Discourse arena without the chance to retaliate. How tragic! Elder Ting lost the initiative and was suppressed at every step. I wonder if he still has a chance to turn defeat into victory. Su Zimo is truly smart. He knows the difference between Earth Immortals and Heaven Immortals and knows that he can't defend against supreme divine powers. That's why he attacked consecutively and destroyed Elder Ting's body, making it difficult for the Heaven Immortal to unleash his advantage. Some cultivators discussed and analyzed seriously. When an essence spirit cultivated to the Heaven Immortal realm, they could release supreme divine powers. However, a physical body was required for that. Otherwise, the essence spirit alone would not be able to withstand the power of supreme divine powers. Therefore, without a body, Elder Ting could not use supreme divine powers. On the other side, Pang Yu's expression darkened as he could not help but curse. What an idiot! After you reconstruct your body, you should release teleportation and leave right away before counterattacking. Although Pang Yu seemed like he was cursing, he was actually reminding Elder Ting how to deal with the situation. After Elder Ting's body was shattered for the second time, his essence spirit fled to a corner once more, and used blood rebirth to form a body of flesh and blood. This time round, he had learned his lesson. After condensing his body, he channeled his essence spirit and teleported away without lingering on the spot. As long as he distanced himself from Su Zimo and had a momentary breather, it would be enough for him to condense a supreme divine power to suppress Su Zimo. However, after teleportation, the moment his figure appeared, before he could catch his breath, the familiar sense of danger descended once more. Fuck! Elder Ting was enraged and cursed out of loss of composure. The next moment, his body was shattered by Su Zimo's palm once more. He had teleportation, but Su Zimo had the true Dragon 9 flashes. Blood rebirth was not without restrictions. Each time his body shattered, Elder Ting would lose a large amount of bloodline essence. His body was shattered 3 times in succession, and he had expended a lot of blood chi. He was not young and his blood chi had already decreased from its peak to begin with. Now that he was severely injured, he seemed to have aged considerably in an instant. Elder Ting's essence spirit escaped, and he teleported away once more to condense his body. Bang! Immediately after, Su Zimo descended and shattered his body with a single palm strike. Initially, Elder Ting's heart was filled with anger and indignance. However, after his body was shattered 6 times in succession, there was only despair left in his heart. If this continued, he would no longer have the ability to use blood rebirth when his blood chi was depleted. Elder Ting's essence spirit looked at Peng Yu on the other side. His face was filled with panic, fear, helplessness, and despair. Elder Ting believed that as long as Peng Yu said a single word, he would no longer have to endure such torture. However, Peng Yu's expression was cold and he refused to say or express anything. Yang Roxu could not bear it. The outcome has been decided. I think Elder Ting can come down now. No! Peng Yu rejected it flatly and said coldly. This is a path he chose himself, and he has to complete it. He's a heaven immortal. How can he admit defeat casually? How can he lose to an earth immortal casually? Even if a heaven immortal has to die, he will not allow an earth immortal to trample on his dignity. Yang Roxu frowned slightly. He could vaguely tell that Peng Yu was implying something. Chapter 2174 Sacrifice 2174 Sacrifice. On the Sword Discourse Arena. When he heard Peng Yu's words, Elder Ting's essence spirit that was escaping suddenly paused. First, his eyes were filled with confusion. Thereafter, as though he understood something, his face suddenly turned menacing and terrifying with a frenzied expression. The dignity of a heaven immortal is not to be humiliated! Suddenly, Elder Ting shrieked. Su Zimo, I'll fight you to the death! The moment he said that, a violent spirit consciousness fluctuation burst forth from the Sword Discourse Arena. Essence Spirit Secret Skill! The cultivators were shocked and exclaimed. How dare you! Yang Rox's expression changed starkly as he finally understood what Peng Yu meant by that. He was reminding Elder Ting to fight with his life. Apart from supreme divine powers, the strongest methods of heaven immortal experts were also essence spirit secret skills. Yang Roxu wanted to save Su Zimo right away. However, although his cultivation realm was high and he was strong, it was already too late by the time he realized it. The speed at which essence spirit secret skills were condensed and released was so fast that bystanders could not interfere at all. Even Su Zimo, who was on the Sword Discourse Arena, did not seem to be able to react to it, let alone the bystanders. He stood motionlessly in midair, rooted to the spot. Elder Ting's essence spirit secret skill transformed into a streak of light and arrived instantly, entering Su Zimo's glabella. It's over! Princess Scarlet Rainbow's body swayed slightly with a pained expression. Up till this point of her cultivation, she had encountered countless paragons and monster incarnates. However, Su Zimo gave her the most special feeling. This was a man that she admired and was curious about. Unfortunately, Such a rare paragon and monster incarnate who dared to fight against Prince Yuanzhua, the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and Zither Immortal Ming Yao would die on the Sword Discourse Arena of Heaven and Earth Academy just like that. In Heaven and Earth Academy, fellow sect mates were not allowed to fight to the death. However, Su Zimo was now assaulted by a Heaven Immortal with an Essence Spirit Secret skill. For a paragon, such a death would be way too aggrieved and unfair. It was as dazzling as a meteor, leaving a resplendent mark in the night sky but dying instantly. Sigh! A series of sighs sounded from the crowd. The scene of Su Zimo destroying Elderting's body consecutively earlier on was way too shocking for the outer sect disciples, and caused their blood to boil. To think that Su Zimo would end up in such a state in the blink of an eye. What a pity! Given his talent, potential, and methods, his future accomplishments are immeasurable. However, it's nothing much. Throughout history, there have been countless paragons and monster incarnates. Most of them died prematurely, and he's only one of them. Some felt pity, some were sad, some were cold, and some were happy. The fickleness of human nature was part of it. Pang Yu! Yang Roxu was enraged and shouted without addressing him as senior brother. Aren't you way too vicious? He has only joined the academy for 1,000 years and hasn't committed any mistakes. How dare you instruct a Heaven Immortal to kill him on the Sword Discourse Arena with an Essence Spirit Secret skill? Are you still human? Yang Rox's skin color was similar to bronze. In his rage, his blood chi surged and his entire face darkened, looking like an enraged Vajra that was extremely terrifying. Although Elder Ting was the one who was trying to kill Su Zimo, Yang Roxen knew that the root of this matter was Pang Yu. While Elder Ting might be alive right now, he was already a dead man. According to the rules of the academy, it was a serious crime to use an Essence Spirit Secret skill on the Sword Discourse Arena. Furthermore, Elder Ting did it against a fellow sect mate. Yang Roxen knew very well that the mastermind behind Su Zimo's death was Pang Yu, who seemed like he was not involved at all. Fufu! Pang Yu chuckled smugly. The more enraged Yang Roxu was, the happier he was. Pang Yu shrugged his shoulders slightly and gave a perfect guileless look. Junior brother Yang, there are some things that you can't spout nonsense about. When have I ever instructed Elder Ting to use any Essence Spirit Secret skill to kill Su Zimo? Yang Roxu clenched his fists and grit his teeth. He did not say anything and merely glared at Pang Yu. Pang Yu had a calm expression as he said leisurely, Everyone witnessed the fight on the Sword Discourse Arena today. All the cultivators present can vouch for me. Yang Roxu was furious and even wanted to attack Pang Yu immediately. However, he knew that there was no reason for him to attack. Pang Yu was way too smart. Earlier on, Pang Yu did not explicitly instruct Elder Ting to use his Essence Spirit Secret skill or kill Su Zimo with his words. Without leaving any stains on himself, he made use of Elder Ting to kill Su Zimo. Pang Yu! Yang Roxu grit his teeth and said coldly, I know that some of you in the inner sect have always looked down on me and tried all means to suppress me. This was no secret. Not only in the inner sect, even disciples of the outer sect could tell something was amiss. Yang Roxu came from the lower worlds and was ostracized in the academy to begin with. Furthermore, he was an upright person and did not know how to be tactful. Naturally, he was gradually isolated by many inner sect disciples. However, Yang Roxu relied on his own hard work to grow in adversity and advance against the odds, gradually entering the top 10 of the inner sect disciples. Later on, he even represented the academy to head to Coiling Dragon Mountain Range to host the Immortal Sect selections and recruit disciples. Although this matter made him famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, he attracted even more hostility in the academy. Under normal circumstances, Yang Roxu should not be the inner sect disciple representing the academy. There were at least 5 people in the academy who were superior to Yang Roxu in terms of combat strength, status, and background. Pang Yu was included among the 5 of them. It was easy to imagine the hostility that Yang Roxu received within the inner sect. Although both parties had some conflicts and could not stand it, they were at Heaven and Earth Academy after all. At the very least, on the surface, things were still calm and they rarely fought or fell out. It was only until 1,000 years ago at the Immortal Sect selection when some rumors about Fairy Mo Qing and Yang Roxu spread that the peace was broken. Those rumors pushed Yang Roxu into the center of the storm. For the past 1,000 years, Yang Roxu had sparred with inner sect disciples on the Sword Discourse arena as well. Su Zimo was also an important person in the Immortal Sect selection 1,000 years ago. He came from the lower worlds like Yang Roxu and was protected by the latter. That was the reason why Pang Yu and the others shifted their gazes towards Su Zimo. Pang Yu had once informed Elder Ting to find an opportunity to teach Su Zimo a lesson, and it would be best if he could kick the latter out of the academy. It could be said that Su Zimo was embroiled in this fight between inner sect disciples without knowing anything. He was merely a sacrifice for this inner sect fight. I can accept your contempt and hostility. However, Su Zimo is not related to me. Back then, he was just an ordinary cultivator, and he is no different from the other disciples who joined the academy. Why are you guys targeting him? Yang Roxu glared at Pang Yu and shouted. He has nothing to do with our feud. He's innocent. If you have any means, you can come at me directly. Chapter 2175 Fuck Your Mother. 2175 Fuck Your Mother. You're all lowlifes. How can you be considered as unrelated? Peng Yu sneered with a disdainful expression. His death will not be unjustified. He deserves it because you chose to back him with all your might. With those words, the two of them had now fallen out completely. Today's matter is just a reminder. The corners of Pang Yu's mouth curled up slightly as he said, although your reputation in Divine Firmament Mainland has grown in recent years, let me tell you, you're nothing in the inner sect of the Academy. You can't even protect a lowlife in the Academy. The surroundings of the Sword Discourse arena were silent, and the atmosphere was heavy. All the cultivators felt chills when they heard Pang Yu's words. Pang Yu's words were not only for Yang Roxu, but also for all the Academy disciples present. He was warning the cultivators present that anyone who had anything to do with Yang Roxu would be in an extremely difficult situation in the Academy, and might even lose their lives. They would suffer the same outcome as Su Zimo earlier on. I see. Suddenly, a mocking voice sounded from the Sword Discourse arena. There were only two people on the Sword Discourse arena. One was Elder Ting's essence spirit. Due to the consecutive destruction of his body, his blood chi was severely depleted and almost dried up. Right now, he was still gathering his blood chi slowly, preparing to reconstruct his body. That voice did not belong to Elder Ting. It belonged to the other person. Could it be? Princess Scarlet Rainbow seemed to have thought of something and her eyes lit up. Swoosh! 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 Instantly, all the cultivators' gazes landed on the green-robed cultivator on the Sword Discourse arena. Psst! Everyone gasped. Su Zimo was not dead. The outer sect disciple who was struck by the Heaven Immortal's essence spirit secret skill was still alive. Furthermore, his body was filled with vitality, and his face was rosy without any signs of injury. Why? Apart from shock, many cultivators were puzzled. Everyone saw Elder Ting's essence spirit secret skill enter Su Zimo's consciousness. Even Heaven Immortals would definitely die if their essence spirits were struck by an essence spirit secret skill, let alone Earth Immortals. The change at that time was sudden. Su Zimo looked like he was rooted on the spot motionlessly, struck by Elder Ting's essence spirit secret skill. In reality, Su Zimo had already sensed Elder Ting's killing intent the moment it appeared. The reason why he did not use his essence spirit secret skill to fight Elder Ting head-on was because there was no need. When Elder Ting's essence spirit secret skill entered his consciousness, it was shattered by the green lotus sword formed by the green lotus seeds. With the protection of the creation lotus platform, the remnant spirit consciousness power could not injure the green lotus essence spirit at all. Thereafter, everyone thought that Su Zimo was dead. Later on, everyone's attention was drawn to the argument between Yang Roxu and Pang Yu. Naturally, no one paid attention to him. Su Zimo also wanted to know the reason why Elder Ting was targeting him, so he did not say anything. It was only now that he understood the entire situation that he spoke. "You're not dead!" The smile on Peng Yu's face vanished as he glared at Su Zimo coldly. "Good, good, good!" Instead, Yang Roxa burst into laughter and praised. "Junior brother Su, you sure are capable." Since Su Zimo was not dead, he no longer had to feel guilty and was in a great mood. "How are you not dead?" Elder Ting's essence spirit was flustered. He had not expected that the outer sect disciple before him would revive. "Since I'm not dead." Su Zimo looked at Elder Tang and said indifferently, "You're the one who'll be dead soon." "You!" Elder Ting's expression changed starkly and he wanted to turn and escape. However, Su Zimo was even faster. Before his sentence was finished, he had already attacked. He strode forward and opened his palm, trapping Elder Ting's essence spirit in it. "Senior brother Pang, save me!" Elder Ting was almost scared out of his wits and shrieked. "Su Zimo, stop!" A cold glint flashed through Peng Yu's eyes. Instead of attacking immediately, he hollered, "According to the rules of the Academy, life and death battles are not allowed on the Sword Discourse arena." "Foo-foo." Su Zimo could not help but laugh. Prior to this, Peng Yu secretly instigated Elder Ting to use his essence spirit secret skill to kill him. Now Peng Yu was the one declaring the rules of the Academy righteously instead. Su Zimo was a scholar to begin with and was well versed in the teachings of sages. Even though he had entered the cultivation world and killed countless people, he rarely cursed. However, at that moment, he hated Peng Yu to the core. He glanced at the latter and said indifferently, "No life and death battles? Fuck your mother!" With that said, Su Zimo exerted strength in his palm and crushed Elder Ting's essence spirit. The disciplinary elder of the outer sect was destroyed in body and spirit on the Sword Discourse arena. The surrounding cultivators were dumbfounded as they looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. Even Peng Yu was stunned. Actually, he had already expected that Su Zimo would kill Elder Ting. With that, he would have enough reason to step in personally to suppress Su Zimo. However, he had not expected that Su Zimo would dare to scold him. "Fuck your mother." Peng Yu was completely stunned. "Bastard, how dare you scold me!" Peng Yu snapped out of his stupor and was enraged. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he channeled his essence spirit and released teleportation, vanishing on the spot. By the time Peng Yu appeared, he was already on the Sword Discourse arena, beside Su Zimo. "Die!" Peng Yu released a palm strike with a terrifying might. Su Zimo could not defend against the power of a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal at all. Even his Grade 10 Green Lotus True body would be shattered. The moment Peng Yu released teleportation, Su Zimo had already sensed it. Without hesitation, he released the True Dragon 9 flashes. The moment Peng Yu appeared, Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot. Peng Yu's palm strike missed. The crowd exclaimed once more. As an inner sect disciple, one of the top 5 to boot, and a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal, Peng Yu's personal appearance to deal with an outer sect disciple was enough to cause an uproar. However, what shocked everyone even more was that Peng Yu's first attack missed, and he did not manage to kill Su Zimo. Peng Yu's reaction speed was extremely fast as well. In a flash, he charged over at an astonishing speed, as though he could determine Su Zimo's landing spot. At the same time, he released the spirit consciousness pressure of a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal and descended from the skies. The moment Su Zimo's figure appeared, he fell into such a tremendous spirit consciousness pressure. Against the pressure of that spirit consciousness, it was as though he had fallen into a swamp and it was difficult for him to move. He could not release the True Dragon 9 flashes and had nowhere to run. This was the method of a top-tier Heaven Immortal. Peng Yu closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art, piercing towards Su Zimo's glabella. Instantly, it was as though a sharp sword was formed. Before it descended, Su Zimo's glabella was already bleeding. The fact that Peng Yu missed his attack was embarrassing enough for him. He was determined to kill Su Zimo on the spot with his fingers now. Chapter 2176 Death of Pang Yu. 2176 Death of Pang Yu. When Su Zimo saw that he could not dodge, his eyes shone with a ferocious glint. He was prepared to take the risk. Pang Yu's finger was way too sharp and it was impossible for him to escape unscathed. However, it was impolite not to reciprocate. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit wildly and glared at Pang Yu fiercely. A bronze square tripod vaguely appeared in the blood light on his glabella. He wanted to use the hell suppression tripod to defend against the first wave of impact from Pang Yu's sword finger. Although the hell suppression tripod was incomparably tough, it was difficult to neutralize the power of a grade 9 heaven immortal completely. There was another utmost treasure on the green lotus essence spirit, the Trinity auspicious jade. This utmost treasure had absorbed the essence of the sun, moon and stars continuously over the years and was incomparably tough. It could even defend against the secondary impact. If that could not resolve the sharpness completely, he still had the 9 heavens living soil. Even if he was severely injured, Su Zimo wanted to kill Pang Yu. After cultivating to the heaven immortal realm, his essence spirit could already release supreme divine powers. Among the supreme divine powers he comprehended, there was a supreme divine power that could ignore the cultivation realm of heaven immortals and kill a grade 9 heaven immortal. It was an extremely risky move. Su Zimo did not know if the hell suppression tripod, Trinity auspicious jade and 9 heavens living soil could defend against Pang Yu's attacks. However, he knew one thing: he was definitely going to make Pang Yu pay. Sensing the madness and killing intent in Su Zimo's eyes, a mocking look flashed through Pang Yu's eyes as he sneered. "Do you want to resist?" Pang Yu said softly. "In my eyes, your strength is like an ant that overestimates itself." Swoosh! The sword finger descended and stabbed towards Su Zimo's glabella with a sharp edge. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared in front of Su Zimo. He was filled with righteousness and had a torrential aura, not weaker than the grade 9 heaven immortal, Pang Yu. Yang Roxu had arrived through teleportation. When Pang Yu teleported away and attacked for the first time, Yang Roxu did not manage to arrive in time. This time round, he arrived in time. He hollered and righteousness reverberated in his chest. Raising his arm, he clenched it into a fist and punched towards Pang Yu's incoming sword finger. The moment Yang Roxu appeared and shouted, Su Zimo growled as well. Fleeting moment! The power of a supreme divine power burst forth and descended instantly, enveloping Pang Yu. After Yang Roxu appeared, Pang Yu's attention was not on Su Zimo at all. With a ferocious gaze, he glared at Yang Roxu and sneered. "Junior brother Yang, your fist is still lacking. You can't defend against my sword finger." Bang! Pang Yu's sword finger collided with Yang Roxu's fist and a shockwave burst forth, engulfing the entire sword discourse arena. The surrounding cultivators who were watching were blown back by the aura and swayed. Yang Roxu also knew that his current combat strength was not a match for Pang Yu. However, Su Zimo was right behind him and he could not let Su Zimo get injured. He could not retreat. The fist and finger collided and the two of them stood facing one another motionlessly. Pang Yu frowned slightly. He felt that something was amiss. The power of his sword should have been able to penetrate Yang Roxu's fist. How were they evenly matched right now? Yang Roxu was puzzled as well. Could Pang Yu have held back? However, right then, their expressions changed. A look of shock flashed through Pang Yu's eyes, followed by confusion, fear and finally shock. As for Yang Roxu, his expression changed drastically as he looked at Pang Yu in disbelief. To Yang Roxu, Pang Yu's appearance was aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His black hair turned as white as snow in the blink of an eye. Wrinkles lined Pang Yu's face, making him look like an old man who was about to die at any moment. His clear and cold eyes had turned turbid and withered. Gradually, the surrounding cultivators noticed something unusual about Pang Yu as well. "Look, what's wrong with Senior Brother Pang? Heavens, how did Senior Brother Pang become like this in the blink of an eye?" Right in front of everyone, Pang Yu's initially upright body became hunched and his entire figure shrank. The commotion in the crowd intensified. Everyone looked at Peng Yu in shock. What happened to me? Peng Yu's voice trembled slightly. The moment he spoke, he realized that his voice had become incomparably old. Peng Yu could not believe that the voice came from his mouth. Senior brother Peng, why is your lifespan? Yang Rox's eyes widened as well, not knowing what was going on. He could clearly sense that Peng Yu's lifespan was almost up. The lifespan of a heaven immortal was 300,000 years. Right now, Peng Yu was only 100,000 years old, and was at his peak. But now, his lifespan was almost up and he could die at any moment. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. And my lifespan. Peng Yu was filled with wrinkles and his shriveled lips moved. He also realized what had happened to him. His lifespan was exhausted, and he was about to die. This was even more terrifying than being severely injured or having his essence spirit damaged. Even if his essence spirit was injured, there was a sliver of hope for treatment. However, when one's lifespan was exhausted, they would truly die. You! Finally, Peng Yu glared at Yang Roxa with his hazy eyes, panting heavily with hatred. However, he was stunned when he saw the confused Yang Roxa. Earlier on, Yang Roxa merely attacked and took him head-on. There was no way he could release such power. Furthermore, judging from Yang Roxa's expression, he did not seem to know what happened either. However, if it was not Yang Roxa, who could it be? Who was attacking him in secret? Before Peng Yu died, a thought flashed through his mind. His gaze shifted and landed on the green-robed cultivator behind Yang Roxa. At that moment, the green-robed cultivator had a calm expression and was glaring at him coldly. He was not surprised at all. Suddenly, Peng Yu recalled that someone had mentioned fleeting moment on the battlefield earlier on. Why you? Peng Yu raised his arm with difficulty and pointed at Su Zimo from afar. Su Zimo was in the direction of Yang Roxa. In everyone's eyes, they naturally thought that Peng Yu was referring to Yang Roxa. In the intense battle earlier on, Yang Roxa shouted and Su Zimo's holler was almost drowned out by that shout, and no one noticed it. Who would have thought that a Grade 8 Earth Immortal could release a supreme divine power? Who would have thought that a supreme divine power of an Earth Immortal could kill a top 5 Grade 9 Heaven Immortal of the inner sect on the spot? Peng Yu's lips twitched, as though he wanted to say something more. However, his lifespan was completely exhausted in that short period of time. Thump! Peng Yu raised his arm and fell backwards with widened eyes, unable to rest in peace. Even till his death, Peng Yu could not understand how he died in the hands of an Earth Immortal. Chapter 2177-2177 Fang Qingyun. 2177 Fang Qingyun. Senior brother Peng died just like that? To think that senior brother Yang's combat strength would already be so terrifying. He killed senior brother Peng with a single move. I reckon that senior brother Yang's current combat strength is comparable to senior brother Fang. A disciple who had just joined the academy could not help but ask. Which senior brother Fang? The current number 1 of the inner sect, Fang Qingyun, of course. I wonder what's the name of the supreme divine power senior brother Yang used earlier on. To think that it could exhaust senior brother Peng's lifespan by more than 100,000 years. How terrifying! I didn't hear it clearly. It seemed to be fleeting something. There was a commotion around the sword discourse arena. A cultivator had long run to the inner sect to inform them about this important matter. Life and death battles were not allowed on the sword discourse arena. However, 2 people died consecutively today. One was the disciplinary elder, and the other was a Grade 9 Heaven Immortal who was ranked top 5 in the inner sect. This would definitely shock the academy. Su Zimo had a calm expression. Elder Ting and Peng Yu were the ones who were unreasonable in this matter to begin with. He was merely forced to retaliate. As long as the academy was fair, they would not punish him. Fleeting moment was comprehended to its limits through the power of Baron, and time is like a saber. With the augmentation of that divine power, the passage of time was fleeting and vanished in a moment. No matter how much lifespan Peng Yu had, Even if it was the full 300,000 years, it would be difficult for him to survive if he was struck by Fleeting Moment. Of course, if Fleeting Moment struck a perfected immortal, it would be useless. Perfected immortals possessed condensed Tao fruits and were protected by true essence. The power of Fleeting Moment could not penetrate it at all. If Pang Yu was prepared and used another supreme divine power to defend against Fleeting Moment, he would not have died. Unfortunately, Pang Yu did not take Su Zimo seriously at all. He had not expected Su Zimo to be able to release a power that could threaten him. All his attention was on Yang Roxu. His sharpness and strength were condensed on his sword finger, and he released an earth-shaking defense against Yang Roxu. Right then, Fleeting Moment descended. Of course, Su Zimo knew one thing. Although Pang Yu died to Fleeting Moment, it did not mean that he could kill a grade 9 heaven immortal head-on. The difference in strength between them was too great. Even the power of a grade 3 or 4 heaven immortal was difficult for him to defend against, let alone a grade 9 heaven immortal. He knew his limits. If Yang Roxu had not appeared at the end and diverted Pang Yu's attention and strength, he might not have succeeded. It could be said that Pang Yu died in the hands of Su Zimo. However, there were many coincidences that happened as well. Just as Su Zimo was deep in thought, he suddenly sensed something and looked up. Yang Roxu, who was in front of him, had already turned around and was looking at him meaningfully with a conflicted expression. There was shock, realization, and emotions. Everyone thought that Pang Yu died in Yang Roxu's hands. However, Yang Roxu knew that the power of his punch earlier on could not kill Pang Yu, nor could it achieve such a terrifying effect. If it was not him, who could it be? There were only 3 people on the Sword Discourse arena. Pang Yu was already dead. If he was not the person who did it, it could only be the third person. Although this matter could be hidden from everyone, it could not be hidden from Yang Roxu. It was M. Su Zimo had just said 2 words when Yang Roxu suddenly frowned and waved his hand, interrupting Su Zimo. "Don't admit to this," Yang Roxu whispered with a grim expression. Just as Su Zimo was about to ask, a holler sounded from afar. "What happened?" A few figures tore through the air from the direction of the inner sect at an astonishing speed. In the blink of an eye, they arrived and descended slowly. Their leader wore a dark green robe with auspicious clouds etched on it. His black hair was tied up and he had a dignified expression with a long sword hanging on his waist. "Greetings, Senior Brother Fang!" The surrounding cultivators cupped their fists in greeting. The number 1 of the inner sect, Fang Qingyun. Behind Fang Qingyun were 4 cultivators, a man and a woman. All of them were elegant and extraordinary with powerful auras that were comparable to Yang Roxu. The man and woman were Tang Ping and Yan Bingying. They were also extremely famous in the inner sect and their combat strength could be ranked in the top 10. Among them, Yan Bingying even had the reputation of being the number 1 fairy of the inner sect. There were many rumors about her and Fang Qingyun, but neither of them confirmed anything openly. "Greetings, Senior Brother Tang and Senior Sister Yan." Many cultivators bowed once more. Fang Qingyun's gaze was sharp and he caught sight of Pang Yu, who died on the Sword Discourse arena right away. However, his expression was unchanged as he narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Yang Roxu, who was not far away, without revealing any emotions. "Senior Brother Pang!" When Tang Ping saw Pang Yu's corpse, his eyes widened and he exclaimed before charging onto the Sword Discourse arena. Yan Bingying reached out and covered her cherry lips as well, exclaiming, "You did it!" Tang Ping raised his head suddenly and glared at Yang Roxu fiercely, saying coldly with a ferocious expression, "That's right." Yang Roxu agreed without hesitation. "Die then!" Tang Ping hollered murderously and slapped his storage bag, retrieving a pair of shimmering golden gloves that he wore. The gloves wrapped around Tang Ping's palm completely. Furthermore, his fingernails were as sharp as sabers and clanged when they collided, causing sparks to fly like a pair of sharp eagle claws. Swoosh! In a flash, Tang Ping vanished from the spot. Teleportation! Yang Roxu frowned slightly. If he was facing a normal enemy, he should have teleported away by now. However, Su Zimo was right behind him. If he were to leave, there was a high chance that Su Zimo would be implicated by the enraged Tang Ping and die on the spot. At that thought, Yang Roxu did not move at all. He swiped his storage bag and a sword suddenly appeared in his palm, piercing towards the void diagonally behind him. There was initially nothing there. Right after Yang Roxu's attack, Tang Ping's figure suddenly appeared and extended his sharp golden claws to grab down. However, Yang Roxu's attack met it head-on. Clang! The sword and claw collided with an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing. Tang Ping shuddered slightly and left once more in a flash. His speed was extremely fast, and there was only a streak of light left on the sword discourse arena. The gazes of the outer sect disciples could not catch up to his movement technique. Even with Su Zimo's eyesight, he could not lock onto it, and could only see afterimages. Su Zimo merely watched for a while before he felt dizzy. He was secretly alarmed. The inner sect disciples of the academy were way too strong. If Peng Yu had not been distracted by Yang Roxu and was unprepared for fleeting moment, he would not have been struck by that attack. When Tang Ping was young, he obtained a great opportunity and swapped blood through marrow cleansing. The bloodline of the rock race flowed through his body and his innate speed was shocking. In the inner sect, Tang Ping was the number one in movement techniques. Chapter 2178 Fair Opportunity. 2178 Fair Opportunity. Tang Ping circled around Yang Roxu continuously without attacking. However, it also meant that he could attack at any moment. A wrong judgment would result in serious injuries. Yang Roxu let out a long breath and suddenly closed his eyes. Wielding his sword with one hand, he seemed to have given up. At that moment, Su Zimo was also on the battlefield and could not escape. Suddenly, a warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. On the left. The moment that thought flashed through his mind, Yang Roxu had already attacked and stabbed to the left. At the same time, a golden light flashed and grabbed the blade of the sword, causing sparks to fly. Tang Ping did not stop after missing his attack and continued sprinting. Before long, a warning flashed through Su Zimo's mind once more. At the same time, Yang Roxu attacked once more. Clang! The sword and claw collided and Tang Ping's figure flashed, disappearing from Yang Roxu's line of sight. Right from the beginning, Yang Roxu had not opened his eyes. Su Zimo lamented internally, secretly in awe. His spirit perception was inherited from Daiyu and he could determine the origin of the danger. Yang Roxu's methods were extremely brilliant as well. Righteousness surrounded him, forming an invisible aura. As long as Tang Ping attacked, he would definitely disrupt the balance of the aura. Therefore, Yang Roxu could sense it right away. No matter how fast Tang Ping was, he could not match Yang Roxu's sword. Therefore, right in front of many cultivators, the battle on the sword discourse arena turned extremely strange. An indiscernible figure moved continuously at a speed that distorted the surrounding void. As for Yang Roxu, he wielded his sword with one hand and placed the other behind his back. Standing proudly, he stabbed out from time to time. With every thrust, the sound of metal clashing would echo from the sword discourse arena. In 10 minutes, Tang Ping had already attacked 100 times. However, Yang Roxu did not move at all. Senior Brother Tang, I know that you have a deep relationship with Senior Brother Pang. However, it's not too late for us to spar after you confirm the exact details of this matter. Right then, Yang Roxu suddenly spoke with his eyes closed, attracting exclamations. Everyone knew that they could not afford to be distracted in such an intense battle. A single mistake could result in death. However, Yang Roxu still had the strength to speak in such an intense battle. At the very least, it meant that Yang Roxu was at ease and still had strength left. Senior Brother Tang, don't fall for it. He's trying to lure you into talking. Yan Bingying stood out and sneered. A life for a life. It's only right. What's there to say to a lowlife like you? It was only now that Su Zimo realized why Yang Roxu told him not to admit that he was the one who killed Peng Yu. That was because Yang Roxu knew that Fang Qingyun, Tang Ping, Yan Bingying and the others would definitely not let them off with Peng Yu's death. These people were led by Fang Qingyun. In the inner sect, they had many feuds with Yang Roxu to begin with and could not stand one another, causing their conflicts to deepen. Peng Yu's death intensified the conflict between both parties completely. Yang Roxu knew these people too well. They would not even bother to ask for the reason for Peng Yu's death, and would just fight right away. However, Su Zimo was only an outer sect disciple who had ascended from the lower worlds. There was no way he could defend against them. The root of this matter was his feud with Fang Qingyun, and the other inner sect disciples. Su Zimo was implicated. There was naturally no way he would push Su Zimo into the center of the storm and let the latter endure the wrath of Fang Qingyun and the others. There was no way Su Zimo could withstand it. Clang! 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 The sound of swords and claws clashing on the sword discourse arena intensified. The fight between both parties was also approaching its climax. Tang Peng's attacks turned increasingly ferocious, and he was already using his full strength. He was naturally getting increasingly anxious after failing to take down Yang Roxu time and again. However, Yang Roxu's eyes were closed the entire time, and he was calm. Suddenly, Fang Qingyun shook his head and said softly, "Tang Ping is getting flustered. He's going to lose soon." Before his sentence was finished, Yang Roxu suddenly opened his eyes on the sword discourse arena and hollered softly, "Hit! Xing!" A sword beam flashed past like lightning that tore through the night sky. It was incomparably stunning and brought with it a stream of grisly blood. The next moment, Yang Roxu retracted his sword. Tang Peng's figure appeared and he clutched his chest with his right hand. Blood seeped out from the gaps between his fingers as he glared at Yang Roxu with hatred and indignance. Yang Roxu's sword pierced his heart. Although heaven and mortals could use blood rebirth, once blood chi entered their bodies and shattered their hearts, it would take at least 10 breaths for them to recover completely. Victory was decided. "Yang Roxu, don't be smug. Wait a moment, we'll fight again." Tang Ping grit his teeth and said. Yang Roxu frowned slightly and said coldly, "I've already shown mercy with my attack. The victor between us has been decided. If you continue to fight, won't it seem dishonorable? Who cares about victory? I'll fight you to the death." Tang Peng's killing intent did not diminish. "Life and death battles are not allowed on the sword discourse arena," Yang Roxu said in a deep voice. "Tang Peng, retreat." Just as Tang Peng was about to speak, Fang Qingyun suddenly spoke and waved his hand gently, indicating for Tang Peng to leave. Although Tang Peng was indignant, he did not dare to disobey Fang Qingyun. He took a deep breath and turned to leave. In a flash, Fang Qingyun descended slowly and stood on the sword discourse arena. Fang Qingyun did not exude any sharpness or terrifying stance. However, Su Zimo, who was standing opposite him, felt chills run down his spine. Even with Yang Roxu in front of him, he could not get rid of that frightening feeling. This person was very strong. There was no wonder why he was the number one of the inner sect. Su Zimo was secretly alarmed. Yang Roxu's expression turned extremely grim as well, and he tensed up. He gripped his sword so tightly that his knuckles turned pale. "Senior brother Fang, are you going to attack too?" Yang Roxu glared at Fang Qingyun fixedly without daring to be distracted. "Don't be nervous." Fang Qingyun waved it off with an indifferent expression. "Indeed, life and death battles are not allowed on the sword discourse arena. However, you'll have to pay with your life for breaking the academy rules and killing junior brother Pang. This matter isn't," Yang Roxu explained. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Fang Qingyun. "I don't want to hear any cause or reason. What I saw was that on the sword discourse arena, you and junior brother Pang had already fought to the death and broke the academy rules. The academy rules alone are enough to justify your death." Yang Roxu had just spoken. Fang Qingyun interrupted him once more and said, "Junior brother Yang, I'll give you a chance now to fight me fair and square. If you win, I won't cause trouble for you in the future. You'll die no matter what. At the very least, I'll give you a dignified death in front of the disciples of the academy." "Fufu," Suddenly, Su Zimo laughed and said, Senior Brother Fang, you make it sound like a fair opportunity. However, Senior Brother Yang has just fought against Peng Yu and Tang Ping. He has expended a lot of energy. How is that fair? You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.